Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, let me check YouTube. Good morning. Says I'm live. There I am. Good morning. And let me check Rumble. There I am. All right. All right. Well, folks, here we are. This is Monday now. No inquiry stream. Ooh, but we have a guest. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning from Beaton. How's everybody today?
We're good. How are you in Beaton? How's the weather?
Actually, we're very nice. Looks sunshiny and maybe 0, 1. Kind of warm for this time of year. So we're still lucking out quite a bit here.
All right. Well, we're cooling down. What are we getting to tonight or today?
-32 today.
-32 today.
Right. If I disappear, it's just because I'm in the middle of making a coffee, but I can still hear you. So give me
Okay, no problem.
to the Keurig, right? a little slice of real life happening here.
Absolutely. Well, this is a whole new thing for us. This morning stream. We don't have any agenda. We don't have any schedule. We're just going to check it out and see what happens from it. And I see as we have some people. Well, of course, we got Terry from Beaton. Here he is.
Cool. I just thought I just wanted to say, the 7 weeks of the poet kind of really created an interesting community here.
It sure did.
Of which you are, of course, our fearless leader. So this is great, helping you. And I certainly am willing to be part of seeing where you want to take. I mean, you want to jump right into if you don't mind me saying it, the snake pit. And wow, what an incredible thing to really want to do. Me, I just kind of want to, I want nothing to do with this shitstorm.
Well, here you are, though. You're on stream and you're able to chat with me. So you're doing more than just nothing. So you're actually helping out, right?
Well, thank you for that. I'm really what you would call. I'm not a detail guy. One of the things I really enjoyed is that you and with your backing from Azario and of course off screen with Railroad and a lot of the other gang is you guys jumped right into the details, right? I don't tend to be detail oriented. I'll pick things out. I'm kind of a generalist. I like to sort of stand back and kind of oversee everything and go, what's going on here in the big picture, right? So
right.
You guys really helped me with that because you were always on the little detail stuff, and I could always come back and go, okay, what did I miss? What did they get? etc. So from my perspective, it was very informative.
Well, I'm really glad you enjoyed that, and I'm glad that getting into the weeds and the detail is something you're looking for, because that's something we certainly can do a lot of, is getting into the details.
Yeah, so I've been spending the weekend kind of looking at what's going on with this Twitter storm and Elon Musk. It's quite interesting. People go, well, what's that got to do with Canada? And I said, well, the U.S. our biggest trading partner. It's got a lot to do with this. And it seems do you ever remember Kim.com some years ago? He went, yes. Well, he just did a great interview with Elon Musk. It happened on Saturday. I posted it for everyone if they're interested. Some really interesting things. Elon said because of course one of my big concerns here is who controls the money, who makes the money. I followed Rocco Galati in his Comer's case when he went up against the Bank of Canada trying to go, we should be using the Bank of Canada the way it was originally chartered in the 30s, right? So I didn't dig really, really deeply into that as such. I don't have a lot of knowledge per se on that particular case, but it became more and more obvious that central banks, right, under the BIS, Basel rules, etc., have caused us an awful lot of trouble, in which I think we're now at the point where we have to go back and see the Bank of Canada in its original charter form to control the money, how money is lent out, etc. And so what I found really interesting was a statement by Elon Musk. he had a really interesting comment about CBCDs, which I think a lot of people, certainly on our side of the line, if I can put it that way, are going, CBCDs, they don't sound like a really good idea. Sound like a control mechanism. And his response when somebody asked him about CBCDs, he said, it was so funny, he said, I really don't think they know what they're doing. Now that from one of the richest guys in the world, you gotta go, It sort of gives you a little bit of hope that these crazy banksters aren't going to achieve what they're going to try to achieve. But coming from our side, from the little guy up, everybody or anybody with any sense are going, CBCDs don't make any sense. But anyway, it was a really interesting interview. And anybody interested in what's going on in the Twitter sphere and how that's going to affect, the bringing back out Hunter Biden's laptop, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty interesting stuff. If you watch the Monk debates with Matt Taibbi, he and can't remember his name, just slammed Malcolm Gladwell and his partner, and it ended up one of the biggest swings in a debate at the Monk debates, where people started off as 48%, 52% in their trust for media. So most people trusted media, and it swung to 67% not trusting legacy media. So it was really quite interesting. Well, the day after Matt Taibbi had that fabulous Monk debate, then Elon Musk gave him that huge data dump. So anyway, for anybody interested, it's pretty interesting stuff. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no, we watched the Monk debate, my wife and I, this weekend.
Oh, cool, eh?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to use the word cool. I was very disappointed at what's his name, Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh yeah, I just meant cool in the
terms. No. I know what you mean.
I agree. I followed Malcolm Gladwell. I was very disappointed with him. He was petulant. He was like a little child.
It was worse than that. I think he demonstrated wholeheartedly what's wrong with the media, because he, not only did he dodge all the questions that were relevant and necessary to answer, he kept going back to a racist standpoint and kept making it about race for an unnecessary, disgusting reason.
You saw Matt Taibbi goes, come on, the race card again, when he brought it up, I think a second or third time. It was kind of like, come on, give us a break.
No, so if you haven't seen it, check out this Monk debate, and it's a really cool series. But this particular one, the mainstream media, which was done in Toronto, it was with, as you said, Matt Taibbi, who did well. I would say he's a decent debater. But,
the gentleman from England, I can't remember his name.
Douglas Murray.
Douglas Murray. He was like right on the ball. He
was good.
Like the Brits can be.
Well, I think it's an art and it's a skill, and there's definitely I think the British people have a little bit more debating in them, just in general, so they're decent at it, but I think Malcolm was an excellent debater. He's just very disgusting in what he did. Malcolm Gladwell, his ability to spin and debate and argue was impressive from a standpoint of a skill, but what he used it for and how he used it was so disgusting. Folks, if you do watch it, please understand that is not how debates happen, and that will explain why there was such a swing.
I agree with you. It's really interesting. I kind of make a comparison here. When Justin Trudeau was the first one to use a divisive language, he was the very first one, certainly first prime minister. But in the whole build up to the Freedom Convoy, he was the one, he was the one who opened the door so everybody could walk into the room of pointing back and forth and using certain kind of language.
Yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell did the exact same thing in that debate. He basically was the first one to sling mud, and boy, oh boy, especially Douglas, he just came back and go, okay, you're going to open the door to that room, I'm walking right into that room, and I'm going to go toe to toe with you. And boy, did Malcolm lose the argument.
Absolutely, and I think it was an excellent demonstration of, again, what is actually wrong with media, because this was a trusted, loved media person, and when this whole debate started, most people in that room felt that media was honest until they witnessed it. I think Michelle Goldberg did all right, and I also kind of feel like she switched a bit near the end.
She almost sounded like she was on the other side there for a few times.
Yeah, near the end, it was kind of like I can't really argue against their points, and I'm not really jumping into bed with Malcolm here because that's just what. So yeah, it kind of seemed like she was a bit of a shift too. But I would say, if anything, Malcolm Gladwell demonstrated exactly what we need to worry about in media, because that wasn't media anymore. I don't know his history. I didn't follow him as much as other people do. He certainly got to that position through his work, but I don't know what happened to that person. But that was really, really, I would say, disturbing to watch.
I would venture to kind of add a comment, or perhaps my opinion on what might be happening to him, like most people, is that far left rhetoric and language they're using. I think they're starting to realize they're losing the overall debate, because the one thing that keeps creeping through, at least from my perspective, on at least the conservative side, the people who are trying to go, we need to get back to some centrism here. We need to get back to some balance. And the only way we can do it is through truth, right? And transparency. And I think kind of his side of the line, maybe, and the people that are sort of on that other side perhaps are starting to realize that, maybe we have drank too much of the Kool-Aid on this side. And maybe, because you can't keep pointing a finger at someone else who's just saying, yeah, but all I want is the truth. I don't care who wins this debate. I just want to see truth and transparency. And the more on, as I say, on that sort of more centrist balance, yin and yang, kind of get back to that. Once truth and transparency is the foundational, it wouldn't be an ideology, what word would be good for it, as a foundational truth to it, truth
or
and
value.
transparency, yeah, then everybody starts to go, oh, well, that makes sense, yeah, of course, and then there isn't this division starts to now kind of bring people back together again.
Well,
I don't know if I've explained myself well, but
well, I think unity is where you're headed with that. So, and this is not what we're finding when we have media reporting that way.
I think just the unity in terms of, it doesn't matter what your politics is or what you think, but when you're out in community, there's certain things. There's respect. You don't walk down the street that an older couple walks down who just came from church and swear your face off, right? You just. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're a church goer or whether you're an atheist. Point is, that community out there is for everybody, right? As this technological platforms that we have are for everybody. Let's respect that, and get back to, if we do disagree, we just agree to disagree with utmost respect. And that's what I think is really, after listening to that Elon Musk interview on the weekend, it seems to bring me more, as I say, I'm a cockeyed optimist anyway, but it brings back more and more hope that we are slowly but surely, we're starting to win, and that win just simply being everything based on truth and transparency.
Well, now we're seeing more of that on Twitter. We see a lot of people leaving, but we see a lot of people coming back, and the conversation's opened up. We've also seen mainstream media really attack Twitter and Elon in vicious ways. And I think maybe the shift away from mainstream media is happening more and more every single day. I did spend some more time checking out Larry Brock over the weekend.
Oh, yes?
Yeah, and I'm impressed. And there's a video that he shared with his questioning of GoFundMe. Have you seen that?
I believe I have. I've watched quite a few of them, but again, like Brock sort of fits into a whole bunch of other videos that I've watched. I've spent hours and hours watching it. Anyway, remind me of it, because I know I've watched quite a few of his. I like them.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is let's watch this together. Grab your
Sure.
coffee and let's watch this together, because this
Yeah.
entire line of questioning is excellent, and especially when it gets around the reporting by mainstream media. So it kind of ties into what we were just talking about there with the Monk debate about truth and honesty in mainstream media. And here we actually get testimony under oath from GoFundMe, who clarifies the record. And I think it was well worth watching. So I'll just go ahead and run that for a bit, Terry. Grab your coffee. Everybody else, grab your coffee.
Good evening, Ms. Wilford. Thank you so much for agreeing to attend and sharing your knowledge with respect to your company's involvement in this particular matter. I know that you touched upon it very briefly. I'm getting some echo here. I know you touched upon it briefly in your summary, but I want to put to rest a lingering thought that really has been percolating and almost to this day is still percolating around this particular protest. And it's basically pretty much the day the convoy arrived. And that was this whole concept that this was a foreign influenced movement, that there were foreign monies predominantly flowing into this country to subvert our democracy. And I know that you touched upon a statistic that clearly puts that to rest, but I want to put things in more perspective for you before I ask you the question. This is a campaign that really started right from the get-go, as I indicated, right from the Prime Minister to numerous cabinet ministers to a number of governing members of Parliament. When you attended before the Finance Committee, there was one Liberal MP who even suggested that there was a Russia connection. In fact, the quote was to you or to Mr. Benitez. I don't know who the question was put to. We know that Russia has been engaged in misinformation warfare for years. 1 trillion in Russian dark money that is circulating and dedicated to undermining our democracy. That was followed up by a question put to you by a conservative member that basically said there was a little bit of irresponsibility in speculating about a Russian government connection. He asked you, did you uncover any connection between the illegal protests and the Russian government? Mr. Benitez, the president of your company, responded that 12% of donations came from outside of Canada, and there was virtually only perhaps a handful, if most of donations from Russia. You accept that as well, ma'am?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. And yes, I do.
That was again followed up. And the reason I'm getting to this is you agree with me. In fact, it was one of your statements in one of the articles that I read that very early on in your involvement in this protest, there was a great deal of misinformation that you were trying to sort out between fact and fiction. And unfortunately, our national broadcasting corporation, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, known as the CBC, which is entirely publicly funded.
Excuse me, my apologies, Mr. Brock. I've stopped your time. I should note, as has been set as a precedent within this committee, that there has been a vote called in the Senate. My apologies, Mr. Brock. Feel free to begin your question where you were. No, you have about 2 minutes left, but I'll be generous.
Thank you, Chair. So as I was indicating, Ms. Wilford, our national broadcast organization, the CBC, very early on in the protest, accused the Kremlin of funding the convoy in a January 28 broadcast of Power and Politics while interviewing our public safety minister, Mendocino, a claim that the CBC had to walk back days later. He said as follows, I do ask that because, given Canada's support of Ukraine in this current crisis with Russia, I don't know if it's far-fetched to ask, but there is concern that Russian actors could be continuing to fuel things as this protest grows, or perhaps even instigating it from the outside. You disagree with that as well, I take it? Ms. Wilford?
Thank you for the question. As I've said, our records show that 88% of the donated funds originated in Canada and 86% of the donors were from Canada.
And just to put a fine point on that, you had approximately 133,000 donors. Is that correct?
That is correct.
1,000 originated in Canada, which is the 86%.
Yes,
14,000 originated in the United States,
yes,
and 4,000 originated from 80 other countries, which represents 3%.
yes, that is correct.
And of the just over $10 million raised before the fundraiser was shut down by your company, approximately 9 million of that originated from Canada, which represented 89%. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And only approximately 870,000 originated from the United States of America. You'd agree?
From outside of Canada, yes.
Yes. Outside of Canada, but specifically from the US?
I don't have those exact numbers in front of me.
Okay.
I apologize.
I'm looking at a summary of an interview that you engaged in with the Commission Council of the Public Order Emergency Commission some time ago.
I do apologize that you are now 45 seconds beyond your time. Mr. Brock, the floor is yours for 5 minutes, sir.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Ms. Wilford, where I left off in my first round of questioning was dispelling and highlighting the disinformation and misinformation being spread by the Liberal government, the Prime Minister, the ministers associated in higher positions involving in this convoy, as well as our state-sponsored CBC. Before I move on, I also want to highlight a comment that our Prime Minister made to our House of Commons on February the 9th, that protest funds were linked to crime. We are working very hard with partners at different levels of government to make sure that the flow of funds through criminal activities is intercepted. You would agree with me, ma'am, that my review of all the evidence that you have given so far by way of finance committee, as well as the interview with the Public Order Emergency Commission, there is no evidence that any of the funds originating to your platform were proceeds of crime.
Thank you for the question. That is correct.
And I understand that your platform, your crowdfunding platform, is the largest in the world. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question. Yes, that is correct.
And by its very nature, I've done a little bit of research. You'd agree with me that you are not politically aligned with any particular government in the world or ideology. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question. Yes, that is correct. We are an open, nonpartisan platform.
Okay. As well as you are not aligned with any particular religious cause. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question. Yes, that is correct.
Okay. How will you then respond to the suggestion of bias? And I appreciate that Mr. Benitez is not here to defend himself, but when both you and he attended at the Finance Committee, you had an opportunity, much like you did today, to provide an opening statement. And on Mr. Benitez's behalf, the president then of your company, he opens up with this particular line. On behalf of everyone at GoFundMe, we want to acknowledge the impact of the so-called Freedom Convoy on the citizens of Canada, in particular the residents of Ottawa. Do you agree with me that that is a form of bias?
Thank you for the question. That was the name of this campaign, and I believe that's all that he was trying to convey.
Well, perhaps we'll agree to disagree. He could have easily said the impact of the Freedom Convoy, because that's exactly what it was called. The information that Tamara Leach initially presented to you was not labeled the so-called Freedom Convoy. That is an opinion that the president of GoFundMe, which is supposed to be neutral and not to be aligned with any political ideology, that's what he said at committee. So do you disagree with me that that's a form of bias?
Thank you for the question. I understand your point.
Understand or agree?
And it was not intentional.
All
at
right.
all.
Okay. I want to move on now because some of my colleagues have asked you specifically about timeline, and I've got several questions regarding timeline. From all intents and purposes, the moment you receive the request for crowdfunding from Tamara Leach and your review, not you personally, but your team and the trust and safety team that works with you, there was nothing untowards with respect to the description of the Freedom Convoy. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question. Yes, that is correct.
Nothing in the, and I haven't seen the actual wording, but I'm just basing it off of narrative that I read attributable to this. There was nothing within that description that promoted either implicitly or explicitly the use of harassment or violence, correct?
That is correct.
And that is why your company saw no reason to deny the opportunity for Tamara Leach and her partners to fundraise on your platform, correct?
That is correct. When this campaign was created, it was within our terms of service.
Right. And I'm looking at your terms of service, and under prohibited conduct, I don't have a page reference, but it talks about paragraph A sub 8. Paragraph A indicates not to use the services to raise funds or establish or contribute to any fundraiser with the implicit or explicit purpose of promoting or involving, and under sub 8, user content that reflects, incites, or promotes behavior that we deem in our sole discretion to be an abuse of power or in support of terrorism, hate, violence, harassment, bullying, discrimination,
Mr.
terrorist financing.
I've given you a lot of runway there, sir. And
I'll
part of
pick
the
up
chat.
where I left off.
Yes,
Thank
you'll
you.
have the time. Part of the challenge of reading things into the record is it
Yes.
takes up the time of the intervention. Mr. Brock, you have 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, Ms. Wilford, February the 4th, 2022 is the day that GoFundMe suspended the campaign for the reasons you've indicated, for the record, for violating the terms of service. Going back to the CBC misrepresenting to the Canadian public on February the 10th, in a report about the protest convoy, CBC Radio's The World This Hour said that the GoFundMe ended a fundraiser for the protesters over questionable donations to the group. You disagree with that?
Thank you for the question. I do want to correct that on February 2nd is when we suspended the fundraiser. This effectively meant that all future donations and withdrawals were paused. We continue to do our diligence and removed the fundraiser on February 4th.
This is a report from February the 10th, ma'am. And the words, I just very carefully use the words, GoFundMe ended the fundraiser, not suspended the fundraiser, ended the fundraiser for the protesters over questionable donations to the group. That is false, correct?
Thank you for the question. That is false.
I understand that in and around the same time that the convoy protest was happening here in Canada, there was a similar protest in Canberra, Australia. Are you aware of that?
I am not aware of that.
I did some research, and it was to protest the vaccine mandates in Australia, just like Canada. And coincidentally, not only did you suspend and ultimately terminate in Australia as you did in Canada. You're not aware of that?
Thank you for the question. I mean, there were a number of similar campaigns protesting vaccine mandates, so I am aware that the team was looking at it, but the specifics of the Australia one I am not aware of right now.
Would you undertake to provide me information on that to confirm?
I'm not sure I understand. What would you like me to confirm?
I'd like to confirm the nature of the protest in Australia, the timing of it, the reasons why it was suspended, and the reasons why it was terminated.
We can certainly discuss that.
Discuss with whom?
It's a lot of information that I just need to get together with our team. So forgive me, but I came here to discuss the Canadian protest.
I
and
do,
this
at this
and
point,
this
I want to
convoy.
recognize, my apologies. I do want to recognize the senators have returned. And as per our discussions, I would like to give them the opportunity to have their interventions, given the time that we have.
Mute.
So completely made up, fabricated on February 10th from the CBC. Completely made up, propagated, put out. That's not journalism. Where did that come from? Where did that narrative come from?
Brock, to me, is he's quite interesting. At least he seems to acknowledge this. Let's just use some numbers we can kind of wrap our head around. 98% of what went on with the Freedom Convoy was exactly as stated, exactly what their intentions were. I think he gets that. And the 1 or 2% that always ruin it for the many, just ruin it for the many. And it's becoming more and more obvious whether the powers that be, finally acknowledge it. They just had to focus on the 1 or 2% of the stuff to color the whole. And anybody with a brain can see. Anyway, at least Brock gets that, right? One of the few politicians. So hopefully more will get his point. We'll listen to his point.
Yeah, I enjoyed listening to him, but I will have some critiques for him. He's too slow. His style is too slow. It's a timed question. You got an interview. You got GoFundMe in front of you. There's a lot more questions he could get out. The questions are good, very, very good. What he's actually bringing to light is very, very good. Destroying the narrative that was foreign funded is what he did there, and also destroyed the CBC's narrative of how do they put it? Bad money or ill-got money or something along those lines, which was completely fabricated. I would like to see him talk faster. I would like to see him get to the point, and his question around the CEO's use of the word so-called, I think wasted too much time. That was unnecessary. But what I really enjoyed of him is he is a prosecutor. He used to be a prosecutor, and he's a lawyer. So that's exactly how he was tackling it. It was like he was going for the criminal charge, or he was trying to dig down into the evidence to have that. Terry, so we just watched this GoFundMe admit that CBC lied, completely lied.
Yeah.
Where's the headlines for that?
We're not going to see.
Yeah, we're just seeing it through our conversation, pulling up Brock. Where are the headlines? Where's CTV's headline for that?
Yeah.
At least holding the other guys accountable. Where's Global? I'm sure Rumble has one or two, but why don't Canadians care so much about the truth?
I think because I've been walking, and I did too. I walked around for decades, every 4 years, putting down an X in a box, once every 4 years, expecting, that my life was on that end of things going to be taken care of. And I lived a pretty good life during those decades. Right now, suddenly 2.5 years ago, wow, did I wake up? Well, I started to wake up a lot longer ago. I won't go into details as to why that is, and started looking into particularly into how money works, also into the medical system due to my daughter's health challenges, but really woke up about to obviously March 20th 2020, which a lot of us have. So what I see, so I do want to disagree. It's a slight disagreement on Brock. I think it was very good that he focused on the so-called, because it really showed a bias in GoFundMe. And I'm glad that he stuck to it until he finally, because it made her nervous at the end. And she finally, because she has a boss, right? He was talking about her boss. She had to finally go, or establish her first comment was, I don't think he meant it that way. And she had to stick with it, right? It's her boss. But the so-called, I think, was really important. Anyway, so now we're getting back to, no, will we see it now? Well, it's one of those things that's what we're now fighting. That's why I was so interested in the Elon Musk interview, is because on Twitter, these things now, as he frees up that platform, I think more and more people will get to see the truth. Because what he has said, why I found it really interesting, which comes back to our legacy media here in Canada, is that with Twitter opening up free speech, he says it's going to, because of the competition it's going to cause, it's going to force legacy media to become more and more open and transparent and truthful. Otherwise, they're going to go, which I think is the big problem they've been facing anyway, they're going to go the way of the dodo bird. Right? Because that is one of the reasons they, for example, legacy media in the States love Trump. Why? Excuse my language, but boy, did that ever sell papers and get people watching the news, right? So this is the same kind of thing. Now suddenly they're being focused on, now they're going to have real hard problems selling their papers and getting people back watching them again. I'm even hearing people, everyday conversation talking about both CBC, and, they're not sure anymore. And then talking about Trudeau, how much of a wingnut he is. Even liberals are saying that.
So do you think that the mainstream media will go on a campaign to discredit Elon and Twitter? Because if it does turn into an open forum where there's a lot more truth, they're going to vilify that.
They've got no choice. They're on their last legs.
Now, you think that will help people wake up?
Yeah. And then I think they're going to achieve the exact opposite.
Right.
I really think they've been backed into. So at one point, a couple of years ago, I would have gone, we got to really be careful because we're pushing a wild beast into a corner. What are they going to do once they're in the corner? Right? Especially on their last legs. They're going to come out lashing. I think we push them into a corner and they're on their last legs. Question is, are they still a beast anymore that can come out swinging? We're about to see.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, because the U.S., they still have relatively free media on their mainstream media. It's not government funded. Okay, in Canada and other places, there's a real strong connection to government funded media. So Canada, I think, it will follow the U.S. a little bit later. We're a little bit more liberal and more government tied. So maybe we pay close attention to what happens in the U.S. around Section 230, which is whether or not platforms can become editors or if they're just platforms. And the push from the U.S., which includes Google, which is YouTube as well, against Canada's C11. So we're hearing a lot from the U.S. side of the border against Canada's C11, which is an attempt to kind of control the streams.
So what happens is the U.S. are our brothers and sisters. They are, right? We're kind of half Brit influenced still in a lot of ways. Well, certainly our politics, just like the U.S. are, right? So we're sort of half and half, this hybrid. But they're the ones on our border. They're the ones that buy most of our goods and services, right? So what's going to happen? I mean, I always look at it as the zero, add the zero, right? The reason they're much more powerful is just simply add the zero. We have 35 million, just to use an easy number. They have 350 million, right? Well, we want them on our side, right? Sure, they have some goofballs in certain part of their states and certain groups and communities, but so do we, right? But overall, we're brothers and sisters, North Americans here. We want the same thing. I've become one of the things that I've become awakened to is how important their 1776 and their Bill of Rights and their Constitution. They really, really battled for freedom. Right now, we have our connection to England, the royal family, and we have our own way of coming to a constitution and now in turn charter of rights. We have our own battle, but the foundational issue of individual freedom is exactly the same. It makes them our brothers and sisters. One of the things I love about the U.S., I would certainly like to see it here in Canada if they quit crushing our military with wokeism, is that a lot of politicians now you're finding are coming from the military. They're vets. These people fought for the thing that is most important, which they believed they were fighting for, was for the freedom back home for their families, their loved ones, their community, truly to be free, free speech, Second Amendment, et cetera, right? So that is really you know, no matter whatever side of the line you're on in regards of U.S. Influence here in Canada, they are our brothers and sisters. We have by far probably gotten, well, we certainly have gotten security out of it.
Yeah.
Here in Canada. You got to remember here, we only have 35 million people, but we are the second largest country in the world with most likely the second largest resources, if not the first resources, because of our water, the huge water supplies, right? I've always, so just on a side note, I've always looked and I've gone, 35 million people, the second largest country in the world with the second largest amount of resources. How in hell do we have any poverty at all in this country? It makes no sense until you start thinking, okay, who's making the deals? Where are these deals being done? Who's in charge? Who's in charge of our money, for example? They took over the Bank of Canada, the powers that be, and look at where we are. You know, look at Tiff Macklem at Bank of Canada raising friggin', you know, the last thing we need right now is bank rates going up, right? Where are we now? You'll be lucky to get a $500,000 mortgage at less than 5 to 6%. How the frick can anybody afford that mortgage? Right?
No,
So you're going to tell me they're on our side, the Bank of Canada? Come on. All right. So anyway, sorry to side note, but you know, we've got a lot of battles ahead of us, but I see a lot of light. I really do. As I say, I'm a cockeyed optimist. Let's move forward.
Well,
we need people like you. We need people like you running. No, because that's what we're getting. Is getting more and more people like you woke up, so that when you get in there, all you have to do is talk to the ones, let's say, that have been in legacy politicians. You start to influence them. They start to wake up. I mean, they are family people, right? Like most of them want the best for their family, you know, longevity and health and everything, right? It's just a matter of just, you know, let's just open the conversation a little bit more.
Well, on that note, I'm going to bring a few more people into this conversation, Terry.
Please do. Actually, I'm going to bow out for a little bit and let you guys take over because I get tired of my own voice after a while. So
no worries.
I'll come back later, but I'll stay. I'll watch and everything. But I'm just going to bow out and let you guys go. All right.
Okay,
I'll see
cool.
you in a bit.
Yeah, pop on, pop off as often as you want, Terry. All day. That link will work.
And I also want to thank everybody else. Over the weeks I've met, like the Ellens and the Eleanors and you know, the Mr. Green Thumbs, and you know, getting that, you know, we haven't met face to face for large hugs and everything, but you know, we're all looking at the we're all in our own different ways, we're all looking at the same thing, right? Security for our family, our children, our grandchildren, right? And so it's been really, really great. I'm enjoying this a lot. Thank you.
No worries, and thank you for being such a vocal and true supporter, Terry. So I thank you very much. So come back anytime. We're going to keep doing something. So I'll keep giving you the links. Thanks
for listening, because my wife won't anymore.
No problem. If what we end up being is a place for us to talk and listen to each other, that's a great first step, in my opinion. So thank you for sharing, Terry.
Absolutely. You guys have fun. I'll just keep an eye on the chat and stuff.
Sounds great. We'll see you
Talk to y'all later. See you, everyone.
Awesome. Folks, that's Terry in the flesh. We get to see him in the chat all the time, and from time to time, he's going to jump on and say hi. Because there's no real format here, we're just going to keep winging it, and we may find our way. I have sent the link out to a few other people. We'll see if they're up early, but it is an early morning show, right? So we'll see what we got. But we do have Clay with the coffee, and Clay, my second cup is on its way. Okay, it's on its way. So I will definitely get back with you and have that second cup. And I'm definitely going to have a third. So thank you. I'll have 3 cups today. Good morning, Azario. Surprise. We're doing a morning show. I totally took the weekend off, everybody. After Friday's stream, which was a half day, I had a little bit of time to myself, and I wasn't feeling so great. I was planning to do the Yellowhead Yacht Club Friday night, and then I kind of shifted to Saturday night. And as time was getting closer to both of those times, I wasn't prepared. I wasn't feeling good Friday night. And then on Saturday, I just got so wrapped up with getting things done around here, because I have to plan to go back to Ontario for the weekend, that I just focused on that. There's 5 or 6 projects that I really needed to get out of the way, and I'm glad I did. So now we're rested. We're trying this out, and we'll see where it goes. Yellowhead Yacht Club is not happening. They're definitely going to happen. And I'm thinking Saturdays, make it an evening thing. We'll talk about that some more. But thank you, Rosario, for coming back to listen, check it out. We don't need your stream today, but if you want to pop on, you know how. You can just jump on anytime, bud. And hey, Prairie, good morning. I'm doing this for people like you, so I can keep seeing you every morning, chat with you every morning, hang out with you, see that flower. Thank you, Prairie. You've been a supporter from, I believe, day one. And you heard that the Banks of Canada has never lost money. Well, know what you mean by that. Other than operationally, they're able to support themselves through the business. Okay. Is there a story that just kind of broke on that one? You can go ahead and share it in the chat, and we'll take a look at that. Good morning, Clay. There's that bear. Got through some of the Monk debate. Need to finish watching. It's hard to watch at times, Clay. That Malcolm guy just... Oh my, he's clearly an intelligent person. He clearly knows how to weave a story. He clearly knows how to get a narrative. And he's very good at being, in my opinion, the worst of what media is. So he did a great job in demonstrating that. Matt Taibbi and Douglas Murphy did a great job on countering and providing the information, especially around Canadian media and how bad it was around the convoy. So it was a really good eye-opener, Clay. So to everybody that shared that with me, because there's more than one of you, we did watch it and we enjoyed it. And then thank you. Good morning to Barry too. And then Douglas Murray killed it. Yeah, Matt was all right. Matthew was all right. You know, he started off with a good intro and he had some good stuff, but he got flustered and didn't handle the whole allegation of white supremacy type of comments coming out of Malcolm. It was weird how he twisted the desire to go back to truthful media and respect the media, which was something that happened back in the 50s and 60s, how he twisted that into a very disgusting way to look at the 50s and then kept attaching Matt to that. That was horrible. But I think it did society justice because it showed exactly how they make those kind of narratives happen out of thin air and how disgusting it is. I think the biggest cancel culture thing will be cancel culture itself when it cancels itself, because that is an example of harmful and a type of, I would say, journalistic violence. Because if you're using your journalistic skills in order to harm somebody, is that not the new definition of violence? Will you create harm on someone? So I think we watched that, right? Journalistic violence out of Malcolm there. It was really, really disgusting. Like we were getting frustrated just watching how bad that was. That was on the level of any other racially motivated hate speech, in my opinion. That's exactly what we watched there. And it had the effect, which was to numb the opposition enough where they were off their game. That was his only reason for doing that. And it did kind of work a bit on Matt. And also distracted Douglas a bit. So, points to him on his reason for doing it. He was successful on it, but that was just gross to watch. So I'm glad it was done. Hey, Clay. Yeah, you can't stand Matt Green. Okay, so that was the chair that you saw there. So Matthew Green is an NDP MP from Hamilton. So I guess you've outed your location there, Clay. Well, enjoying the Hammer. I think you've mentioned a few times that you're at the Hammer. Glad he's on city council, but he's still your MP. Yep. And good morning, Phyllis. Thank you for coming back. Facebook has a lot of viewers, so thank you all for coming back and checking us out and hanging out with me. We're going to see where this goes, and I'm trying to reach out to Yellowhead, Alberta, Canada. We talk about politics. We talk about mainstream media, defunding it. We talk about globalists. Those are some of the main topics. We really want to see media get back to being media. We really want to see accountability and oversight on our government. And we also want to counter and fight the globalist agenda. So those are kind of the three main pushes here, all related to my neighbors in Yellowhead and Alberta and then across Canada. And that's basically who's showing up on this chat, in our live chat, and will show up on the stream. will be Albertans, Canadians, people who are fighting against, those main three things: the media, the federal government, and globalism. We align well with people like Danielle Smith, who's doing the exact same thing in Alberta. And we're certainly going to cover her quite a bit and do our very best to have her show up on here and, help us understand a few things that she's working on. We have constructive criticisms and open minds. So we're interested in finding out what she's got going. So thank you for coming from BC, and we're definitely be covering some topics there, and we have some guests from BC, Phyllis. And if you're ever interested in coming online, just say so. CBC is speculating, which is horrible, right, Kimberly? Horrible, horrible, horrible that your media gets caught like that. And where's the expose from the other media? Where's Global? Where's even the Sun? Where are the other ones saying, hey, look, they're proven to be lying? This is, you call it speculation, but it's a straight up lie when you make up and report. Okay. Where's the journalistic integrity? Where's the requirement from the others to hold them accountable? I think when everybody's holding or pulling money out of the same type of government fund, they're all a little bit worried about rocking the boat. Because what if CBC goes on the attack of CTV as a retaliation and there's like a media war? Maybe they act the same way as parties where they don't really want to destroy each other because they all kind of feed from the same trough. Kimberly, I think speculating is a nice way to put it. I call it a flat out lie. That was not the truth of the information at all. And they absolutely were in a position to have the correct information. And even if they don't have the correct information, it's not for them to make it up. So, and we see lots of that. Okay, lots of that. We need to keep calling them out and find a way to get media disconnected from the government. CTV story says majority of Canadians agree with the EA. LOL. That might be true, Prairie. Okay, that might be true. Okay, because the majority of Canadians are not paying attention, right? More and more are starting to, so we'll keep that going. And the more that they see stuff like, the Monk debate where they see what the media does, the more we'll stop listening to CTV and looking for others. But I think we're still there. I think a majority of Canadians still think the EA, it was necessary. Now, the good news is that shouldn't matter. Okay, our parliamentary process, the report, all that kind of stuff should have no influence on popularity or polls. But I'm not surprised to actually hear that might still be the case. Now, we could also be being lied to, Prairie, and that might be what you're pointing out here, and that could also be exactly what's happening here. CTV are saying that, but it's not even close to that. I believe if you take an average Canadian and sit them down and explain to them in less than an hour of what actually happened, what actually came out, and what the Prime Minister's requirements were and how they were failed to be met, a majority, if not overwhelmingly, would be against it. It's an education thing. Now, not wanting to be educated, that's a systemic thing. And that's where we have to kind of fight a bit of a battle. They don't want to be educated and they don't trust what they're watching other than what they're fed. So systemically, that's where we're going to do the fight. But I think inherently, Prairie, Canadians actually understand if they are explained or do the education that this isn't what they signed up for. This isn't the Canada they grew up in, and it is worth fighting for. Outnumbered 10-1, Kimberly. You talking about the Americans there, Kimberly? There's 10-1 on there. We were talking about that with Terry. And he was talking about how the influence of the American market and our trading partner, all that actually has an impact. And we were chatting a bit about how their media seems to be a lot more, I don't want to use the word truthful because it's just as bad down there for narrative generation, but they're not connected to the government in the same way as they are in Canada and other countries. So sometimes you do see breakout stuff from even CNN. And now that private CNN maybe is going to be switching, their ratings are all down, et cetera, et cetera. We'll see where it goes. But there's a lot more optimism with America-based media only because it's not connected the same way in Canada to the government. That said, it certainly doesn't cover the issues the way Canadian media should be covering it and the way some of the alt media and independent media is covering it. So welcome, Kimberly, from Facebook. Thanks for joining us. Azario, CTV is smoking stuff. Yeah, I know that that's a sentiment. Global as well. It's very difficult to even watch some of that when you do have an understanding of even the fundamental basics of what's going on in Canada. It then becomes very difficult to hear the pundits talk because it's bad. It's make believe. It doesn't happen that way. It's meant to harm and divide. It's meant to get a team going to really frustrate the other side. It's all for a purpose. And Clay agrees with Terry. Long road ahead with many bumps, but I feel we'll get there. Optimism is something you can hold on to because, well, this is fundamentally a good evil battle and good wins. So we keep the fight going. We make sure that we don't give up hope because that is also part of their strategy is to diminish and demoralize. So don't allow that to happen. And we have, the red black now. Look. You guys like that jacket so much. We went actually got one with a liner, and this is warmer than my other jacket. So Railroaded, if you're listening, the universe has helped me out. I now have a warmer jacket. It's red black. And let's move forward. Let's go and keep this going and make sure that we're doing what we can to get the messages out. Hey, Terry. And welcome back to the chat, Terry. You're already exploding there. Bank of Canada just lost 500 million plus minus recently reported. What does that mean when the Bank of Canada loses money? In what way? Spending more operationally, holdings. What does that mean, Terry, if you don't mind expanding on that? And Matt and Douglas did not use derogatory terms until Malcolm did. Bad debate move. Well, yeah, look, both. They kind of, look, when mud starts flinging, people get muddy and dirty. And what I didn't want Douglas to do was to drop down to Malcolm's level. But Malcolm kept pulling him down by calling him Doug. Okay, that was a direct purpose there. Anyways, it's still a good debate at the end of the day because what it does demonstrate is how horrible the media is and how independent media or people that came out of mainstream that went independent like Matt did, how they have to suffer through unjustified attacks against the person and not the journalist. Because that's all they got. They can't actually attack the merits of the argument because it's not working for them. It's not in their favor. Common sense and decency doesn't allow it to be in their favor. Therefore, they have to shift it to a different level. And most of, I think, Malcolm's strategy was to provoke. This is kind of like Trudeau to us, calling us names, trying to provoke. Because one way to win a debate is to get the other side to completely lose it. And I mean, like, lose it emotionally. They just mentally lose it. If you can do that, that's also another way to win. It didn't work because we're all getting smarter and stronger against those kind of tactics of provoking. But as you can see there, Malcolm didn't hesitate. And that's disgusting. That's supposed to be a journalist there on the merits, and he understands the question. And he's there for the truth and honesty of mainstream media, and he didn't bring it. So again, it's a win because he demonstrated how they work. But oh man, it's also like seeing behind the curtain, and that's what we got to clean out. And what I don't want is some sort of, we're going to target people in media and remove them. That's not the path here. The path is to demand more out of the entire institution itself. And then the institution itself will do its self-cleaning and regulating as it used to do. That's the approach here. You don't target individual reporters who you don't like and say you should be fired. You back up and support the entire infrastructure of media and get them back to where they were. And you do that through your dollars. And we need to remove the artificial funding that's going on. It's keeping them propelled. We need to remove that so they have to get back to really working for the people, because the people's dollars is what they need to survive on. Question begged, who did the BOC lose money to? Yeah, I'd like to know some more about that. Because is it operational? They spent more money operating. Bank of Canada, it could be all justified there, Terry, but go ahead and take a deeper look into that and share with us. Liverpool, Nova Scotia, Canada. Wow. Welcome, Jimmy. Really nice to have you, man. All the way from Nova Scotia. So we've got a couple people from out there for sure. even Newfoundland. Okay, so welcome, Jimmy. Thanks a bunch for coming out and joining us. And that means it's a little bit later in the day for you, so you're going to have us around your noon when we finish up here. But thank you for joining us. It's still morning there. Kimberly, agree 100%. I'm not sure what directly that was for, but it could have been something that Terry was talking about, or media in general. But thank you for Kimberly for joining us. And then Diane too. Wow, Facebook, the whole bunch of you showing up. Sudbury, Ontario. Good morning, Diane. Thank you for joining us from the Nickel Belt there. Do you still get to enjoy when they're pouring out the metal down the mountain? Can you still see that from where you are? I know when I visited Sudbury, it was my family. There's some family that was there. My grandma was a bus driver there. That was one thing I enjoyed, was at night time watching them spill and dump the molten whatever leftovers from the nickel mining. It's kind of neat. And if you have been to the area, you know about the Big Nickel. Go check it out before we don't have nickels anymore. We got rid of pennies, so nickels will be next. And then, hey, Clay, when journalists start becoming activists for insert cause, they cease being journalists. It's canceled unbiased reporting. It's a fine line, right, Clay? It's a fine line. Because would we be considered activists if we're fighting against certain causes? So globalism, federalism, media, corruption. Are we activists? Are we lobbyists? I think it's a fine line, right? It's a fine line. I think what you're trying to get at is when it's a biased, okay? It's biased activism. Like you're certainly taking a side and you're not even doing your journalistic job, which is to be unbiased and report the truth, what you see. Okay, so I think there's a couple parts to it. But wouldn't we be classified somewhat as activists because we have a cause, which is against, let's say, just federalism. We have a mission to counter it, and we have a desire to see it gone. So that would be activism, protesting even at points too. But I think what your point here is certainly when it gets biased, it's when it's no longer journalism at all. And when it pushes a narrative, especially when it's not even real, that's not journalism. Well, that is propaganda. Interesting story out there gaining steam. Cool, Terry. Thank you for keeping that right in front of us here. Here we go. International Blood Bank unvaccinated form members, at least 16 countries. Yeah, I saw this one coming. And then there's going to be sperm banks. There's going to be eggs, marrow, hair. There's going to be a whole bunch of things that people are going to want to be non-exposed to mRNA. Let's just leave it at that part. It's not even vaccine, okay? It's mRNA. That is what people are going to be concerned about entering their system, okay? This is no different than making sure that we have HIV and other things not in the blood supply. This will become a demand because people who, well, for starters, if you're seeking mRNA blood positive, you may be wanting to seek that. So there's definitely going to be two markets there, or two supplies there. And why shouldn't we? Why is this even controversial? Why is this a problem for anybody? Absolutely. You should be able to make sure that blood type matches and blood status matches. And blood status could also mean mRNA positive or negative. Okay. Could also be COVID antibodies positive, negative. That could be choices that people are looking for. And I don't see why there would be a push against it unless you're intentionally trying to get people to be stuck with the no choice option of life or death. You're in a car accident and they bring you blood to keep you alive. And now you're faced with no choice but to get the mRNA. And you might be one of the unlucky ones where it's not something that benefits you in any way, shape, or form. There are some unlucky ones out there. Ozario, you know how to jump on, buddy. There you go. Nice to see you. Happy Monday.
Morning. Good morning. Happy Monday.
Yeah, here we go. We're just going to chatter away and go through the news and media and guests. So thank you for joining.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
How was your weekend?
Oh, it was pretty good. Really relaxing and just did a lot of work around the place. So getting caught up on things.
Yeah, I know how that feeling is after, I guess it was 7 weeks of being full time, spending a lot of time on this. It's amazing how little things kind of get dropped and then you need to pick it up because they all get stacked up. And
Sure.
little things like even adding the heat tape to our water lines. I had to get under there and do that. And my hands are all chopped up from that work, but
Oh,
our lines can't freeze now.
awesome.
Yeah. So sorry there was no Yellowhead Yacht Club or anything like that over the weekend. I think everybody needed a break.
That's okay. I was knackered Friday night anyway, so I was just, yeah.
Yeah, no, I wasn't feeling good. Like, I don't know if it was the change in food or whatever. Like, when I came home, I ate way better. And then I didn't feel great on Friday. But I'm back to my normal. Now, we're still good for Saturday at your place?
I think so. Yep. We're
All right, cool.
good on my side. So,
Yeah, and then we're all booked. I leave Wednesday afternoon, so I'll be able to do something in the morning and then fly. And then court on Thursday.
There you go.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Looking forward to it. Yeah, my favorite part is giving you guys all the breakdown when it's all done. It'll be
oh, yeah.
it might be our own POEC going on.
I'm stoked to hear that, the conclusion of that story. So,
Yeah, you know parts of it, but we now have a witness. We now have the witness, the very next person. So,
okay.
done deal. Let's go ahead and go through a couple more of these chats because we actually have quite a few people that showed up today. And we got GME, and we got Kimberly on Facebook, and Diane on Facebook. Here we go. I just lost my spot. Terry. Okay, got this right, Clay. The monk debate session we spoke of really pointed that out well. Take a look if you haven't. So have you watched it?
Yeah, I watched the monk debates. It was really good. Yeah, Douglas Murray was absolutely brilliant in that whole session. I think he really highlighted, like, he had that local knowledge, right? And it was, very pertinent to the audience that was there because it was done in Toronto. But he took the time to actually go into the backstory, unlike some of the other debaters on the panel, which was, like, I think Matt Tahibi did a little bit, but sorry, the other gentleman, Malcolm, he didn't really do anything centered around that. I'm trying to remember the woman's name. Kimberly. Was it Kimberly?
Yeah, I'll pull it back up. Go ahead.
Yeah, but she actually said she was at the convoy, at the protest, and but it didn't really resonate with her. She didn't come out and say, "Well, I didn't really witness, what the mainstream media was saying," and like underline that point to say, like, because that would have been a perfect counter argument, is to say, "Hey, you know what? I was there, and I noticed that what was being reported by your mainstream media was not, necessarily what I saw," and then say, well, there's room for us to improve on that and go down that angle, right? That would have been, I think, a little bit more apt. But.
Well, I found a hole in her story. She talked about going into a trucker, talking to a trucker, getting his story, and then quickly it turned from a trucker to a guy who drove in his car. So if you replay part of that, there's a part of her story where she actually contradicts herself on the mode of transportation of the driver that she was speaking to, which then leads me to believe that she's making it up as she goes. Mixing together multiple interviews or something like that, possibly. But it's not matching. So you actually, if you want to actually pay attention to what she says, her reporting is contradictory. There's something really wrong with the story.
Yeah. One second. I'm just going to turn the lights on here. So.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so folks, I was looking for that link quickly, but find her name again. But it's let me see if I can find it there. It's not really all that important what her name was. She was from the New York Times, and
I like to be precise, though. So
yeah, please go ahead and find it. Yeah, I had the link here, but I'm having trouble finding it again. Let's go ahead and say, hey, Kimberly. Yes, that's the population is 10 to 1, in my opinion.
Michelle Goldberg. So
Michelle Goldberg. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I found her at first. I thought, maybe she'll be decent, but then she kept referring to. Oh, here's what I didn't like. What she did. She referred to the media apologizing for the Hunter Biden stuff as proof that somehow that they're very, very honest, but they're being called out after a year of it. And she kept pointing to that as some sort of proof that, hey, look, we're all great. We get
it wrong sometimes, yeah.
And then she spent a lot of time on that trans story that she was involved in. And what she was pointing to there was, we speak to all voices. No, no, you
No, you
didn't.
don't.
There was definitely two voices missing in that entire conversation. Parents and opposition. Both of those voices were missing in her article. So she was talking about three different types of people that were going through their transition, but not parents, because she was talking about children, and not opposition, people who say you shouldn't be doing this to children. So anyways, at the end of the day, I still didn't like how she was tying things that aren't credible to the media as credit to the media to show how their honesty and openness is really there when it's not. Did you really hear her talk about why the Hunter Biden stuff was suppressed, or she just ignored it?
And not to mention the big drop on Friday with the complete Twitter files that just happened to came out. But yeah, no, I don't really like. She was just trying to spin it so that it's like, so yeah, sometimes we get stories wrong, and then we'll come back and own up for it. But that doesn't seem to be like that in itself doesn't seem to be factual, because I can count on one hand how many times a paper really does retraction over a big story or anything like that. It seems to be that any mainstream publication will just put stuff out there and then quietly delete it and not say anything if they get caught erring in the side of facts, for example, or getting the story wrong. They just quietly cancel it, right? They just pull it off. No, don't have to apologize or anything. And that's not honorable in my mind. And that doesn't lend to credibility. The credibility comes from saying, yeah, we got this wrong. We take, and here's why we got it wrong. And this is what we're doing to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
And go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's really the only way that media can, well, I should say one of the ways that media can reestablish its credibility. You don't have that, nobody's going to believe what you're saying. So.
Yeah, and Clay, as he points out here, because we were talking about the fine line between activism, being lobbyist, and journalists, like what we're doing here. So he agrees it's a bit of a fair point. It's a fine line. We all have our own feelings with topics, but when they are unwillingly pushing narratives and are blatantly false, it's not journalism. I agree completely. There's a big line there. And it was interesting that the Monk debate didn't have any Canadians.
Yeah, that's almost a first. I've never really seen one that they didn't have any Canadian content on it. So that would be wouldn't be able to watch that under C11.
Yeah, that's right.
Anymore.
Canadians on it.
There's not enough Canadian content. So
you got a point there. Maybe they just slipped under the radar and got it going.
Yep.
And C21 is something we should talk about at some point.
Absolutely. You want to talk about the Twitter dump though first?
Yeah, we can go there first because I thought it was a decent dump, but let's go in here. Here's some more.
Yeah, well, Matt Taibbi, I think, just coming off this win at the Monk debates, enters into the Twitter sphere with Elon trusting him with a whole big data dump. And there's still another data dump supposed to be coming. They said there was going to be one on Saturday. And then they said, well, maybe Sunday. Maybe we're going to see something tonight on that. And I would hope so. I'm sure pretty much almost broke Twitter servers on Friday night because everybody was just hammering them from like 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. I asked Elon, I was like, Elon, can you send some traffic graphs? I want to see this because that's just geek porn for me to see how much volume they're actually handling. But I think establishing those links between, the White House and Twitter is just it's pulling back the curtain. We got a glimpse into that when Mark Zuckerberg was on Rogan a couple months back, and he said, yeah, we did talk about the FBI coming in and saying, well, these stories are going to be dropping and it's probably misinformation. You want to keep an eye out for that. So you could read between the lines there. Mark wasn't giving us the straight goods on everything. He was very filtered and careful what he could say. So I think the other telling piece about this is that, like, Canadian journalists, have you seen a story on this in Canada anywhere?
No.
Not one.
No.
And
I looked at the hot links and
there's not one journalist that
C21 is being talked about. Hunting rifles being talked about, but not anything else.
Well, like, I mean, and here's the thing is that if it happened in the United States where you had politicians like, and they weren't even elected at this point, the DNC is the Democratic National Committee Convention, lobbying Twitter to suppress a story that was coming out. And
Before the election.
before the election. So this wasn't even a party that was in power at that time. It was just that is the one underlying point that really needs to be driven home is that this was just doing favors. This wasn't necessarily about, wielding the FBI in this instance and saying, well, okay, you need to do this. Now, there may be some of that behind the scenes that we're not seeing. There might be some like that Elon wasn't publishing with this dump to say that, the FBI was kind of very kindly suggesting that, Twitter look after these stories. So that may be another vein, but they may not be able to talk about it, or he's not willing to really expose himself that far. So,
Well, let's put them into two groups. So dump one and dump two. Dump two hasn't happened yet. So dump one is what we just saw on Friday. Do you really feel like that was a big revelation? Because from my perspective, as I went through his tweets, I'm like, knew it. Oh, so at least one Democrat person inside of Twitter was pushing back. That's like really the only new information I got out of there. So are we really all that surprised? And is it really going to move the needle at all?
I can't say that I'm terribly surprised by it, but I can say that looking at the actors that were in play, like Vijaya, who is the basically head of data security and safety,
And legal, right?
And legal, yeah,
Right. She
wore both hats, yeah, but she was certainly complicit in helping out and assisting in this kind of suppression of information. So I don't really think that it's a massive revelation, Jay. I think it's more just confirming what we already knew, which I think is a positive step in the right direction. That as you mentioned, the one Democrat employee at Twitter pushed back and said, "Hey, is this even
Illegal or
what is our data hack data policy?" was what they're referring to, and it's just like, well, we didn't even have a hack data policy, so let's make this up, and this will fit the narrative. So it was kind of interesting to see how they spun that. Dump two, I don't know what it's going to entail, but the one thing that's going on is that you can see all this data that has come out of the Hunter Biden laptop, and where's the DOJ on this? Like, the Department of Justice hasn't done anything about it because there appears to be, some evidence of felony crimes that, should be investigated. And, nothing's really happening. I heard a little rumbling about that, I think probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, but then it went quiet, and that they're not doing anything with Hunter Biden. I mean, from what I know of the dump, I hope the man gets some help. It clearly seems that he's not on the right path for his life and needs to do something to get straightened out. And I wish that he would. But at the same time, too, if there's some major misdealings that are going on with foreign entities and abuses of power, or wielding that power that his dad has, yeah, that's not light. That needs to be investigated.
Well, I'm going to do a little bit of pushback because we want to be fair as well. If his last name wasn't Biden, would we care?
Well, I think if we had anybody that was acting on behalf of, or brokering deals on behalf of somebody that was in politics, or basically representing the U.S. in some capacity, I'd still care about it, even if it wasn't Hunter Biden. Like, if it was some Joe Blow that was, brokering deals with Ukraine and China, then why not? They should still be held to account for those types of things. So,
well, I believe if it's like a Watergate where you can actually link it to the president at some point and some sort of doing by the president himself, yeah, okay, I'm on board. But I feel a little bit like this is, well, if it wasn't his son and it was just Joe Schmo laptop, he was also doing stuff in Ukraine, he was on the board there, and he does stuff with Biden, I don't think it would be as big. And this is where I just want to remind our side a little bit that when it comes to family, we do want to have a distinction between the two. So I say, keep pushing this particular investigation to see what Joe is involved in. There's emails about the big guy, 10%, being on Air Force Two, things like that. Keep going with those. But as far as his fetishes and his little extracurricular activities and the things that he does outside of anything related to that, I would kindly suggest that should be off limits. Because I think that's one step further than the actual story. And it's almost like watching the same guy from the New York Times. I just lost his name, Malcolm.
Yeah.
Watching him twist a narrative to make it grosser than it needs to be. I jump on board with you when it comes to the concern for him as an individual person, and he needs to deal with some things. But that's where I think that should be private. Even with his dad supporting him in public and stuff like that, if it was the other shoe, it would be gross. Of course, the mainstream media would be running with it left, right, and center, but that doesn't make it right either. So what I hope that comes out of this laptop stuff is really exposure of the media and big tech and their involvement in suppression of it, and another new conversation around Section 230 because of that. Because of their deleting and their exclusion of actual truthful information, they became more than a platform. They became a publisher, an editor. So I can see how this will usher in that conversation, and we can really start seeing where 230 will go. But I really want to back away from going after family members because they're related. As bad as that situation is, and as much as we know, if it was reversed and there was a Trump as a last name, there would be nothing but that. Two wrongs don't make a right. And I feel really bad that the sibling or the child of a world leader is such a vessel of attention, the negative kind, that I actually think it even might distract away from some of the real problems here. So what is Joe's real involvement? That kind of stuff.
I mean, and we haven't, I agree with that point in trying to keep Hunter as isolated as possible. But I think it's fair game if he's had some shady dealings with foreign entities outside of the United States, then that stuff's fair game to go after. The other stuff, we can put that aside.
Yeah, I would like to make a distinction there. Like, what's connected to the president through his son is fine. Like, what's connected to the president.
I mean, we hadn't even got to the point of talking about what implications this had for the 2020 election. And I'm not saying that this election was stolen. This was, anything like that. This certainly made the case for, a possible different outcome. I
think 17% was the number or something. Like 17% of Democrat voters would have been at least impacted by that information if they knew it was to be true. So we don't know what that actually would have been, but it had the possibility to make a difference in those results. So what that is really what I think I wanted to pull out of that story the most was just to say, if the U.S. Democratic National Convention has that much pull with social media companies, how much pull does our Canadian government, Liberals, CPC, Greens, NDP have with social media outside of, when they're in power? And there's a lot of people on Twitter going, hey, now do Canada. Please give us any dirt that you have on Canada. But this weaves back to, the misinformation piece, because you have this club of kind of media organizations that are they're complacent with and are complicit with the government narrative, so that will go along with it and put that line out there, just like CBC was, trying to define that foreign funding and that Russian, funding narrative that Larry Brock was kind of going after with the Give, Send, Go organization. So you can feel that these our parties have tentacles in everything, and it should be disturbing to anybody, because I think that what this has done at Twitter, at least, and the Bidens, has shown that, this happens all the time, and we're probably going to get a view into this happening more. So. Do me a favor and try and close your blinds behind you. That might help a lot with your video. It looks like we're doing a bad job of hiding your identity. Like he's come out as a whistleblower, but we're just really bad at obscuring his face.
We can try it.
All right,
There we go.
let's see if that helps a bit. Oh, there we
Yeah.
go. We kind of get you there. Okay, I don't disagree at all. Okay, and more that I think about this, we just got to keep doing this. Okay, keep getting the message out, keep making videos, and keep talking about these subjects and getting more information out. Hunter Biden laptop, suppression of it, change the election, maybe sort of. We will probably never truly ever really know, but the root of all of this, even the Canada side convoy, all of this is who do we trust, and if that is an ongoing debate, and that kind of sort of should, because what if we ever get to the point where we only have one source, and that's the only source that we trust? What happens when they start, as we watch media over the last 2 years, start to lie? We could just be in the same circle. Tough problem, but we have another topic, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Let's jump in.
This is the suddenly died stuff. Prairie's got another video here from Dr. Drew about those clots.
Oh, but the
So
1 foot ones, yeah. I
you
saw
watch
the
that
title
video?
of it. I saw the title of it, but I didn't get into it.
Did you watch the one video?
I watched the died suddenly one, yeah.
Okay, so my challenge with that one is I don't know enough to know if any of that was normal. Okay. Now, pulling stuff out and all that kind of stuff. I don't know enough to know if that isn't normal.
I can't remember what I listened to the other day. I think it might have been Brett Weinstein and Heather Haying on the Dark Horse podcast on Saturday. They were talking about the morticians not necessarily having much skin in this game or much risk either as well. Brett, I think, mentioned that one of the things that was common is that it's normal for the human blood to clot after death. So I watched that, and then I kind of let it sit for a couple of days in my head and just kind of trying to think of what I watched. And I was thinking, yes, well, is there a possibility that this is true? Yes, very much. It could be. Is it true? I don't know. I don't see that the people that were like the morticians that were doing this really had anything to lose by saying that this was happening. I think they could have. They just there's no reason for them to lie. So that is kind of the part that lends some credibility to what their position is and what they're seeing. I'm trying to remember who the producer was. That was Stu Peters is involved in that too, isn't he?
Not sure, but I'm having a hard time getting past that clip of Gabriel passing out being included in the movie.
Yeah.
That's why I'm having a hard time. Like, just like when we talk about reading the newspaper and you read a section and you know the truth, and then you kind of have to distrust the whole thing. When I saw that clip of Gabriel, I'm like, oh, because it was during the part where they're implying people are dying.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't say passed out. They didn't imply he came back or anything like that. So that's one piece that's making me very skeptical that this isn't also just a narrative of the video as well, which is sad to me, because when these guys are editing this and putting this together, if they just made darn sure that everything they're showing is accurate to what they're depicting, then I wouldn't have this problem. But I watched that live, and I know the after story, and I know whether it was faxing or not, that wasn't released. And, anybody's speculating that. So that kind of hurts the whole, in my opinion, the credibility.
Oh, absolutely. Opening up with Pink Floyd's was a Run Like Hell. And that whole video montage that was at the beginning really kind of was trying to drive that, right? And
that bothered me, because at first I didn't know if I had the right video. I almost
Yeah.
felt like I was watching some sort of edited something. I wasn't sure what the heck I was watching at the beginning.
Yeah, I when you start to make a documentary very slick and polished like that, I think it takes away from some of the integrity, perhaps, a little bit. I'm old school in the sense of like documentary is just like, you know, all of a sudden you're interviewing somebody and you're going back and forth and you're having that dialogue, or then you flip over to somebody else, and you know, that sort of thing. Not this really slickly polished video production that comes out. Not to say you can't do it well, but I mean, you're adding all this extra color in there that I think isn't necessarily part of the story.
So we'll put that under, you know, artistic license for shock or something. Maybe we'll put an editor, put that in, or some other person who, whatever, and we'll give them a majority of the benefit of the doubt that, you know, they're reporting something here. They are documenting something and providing information around it. So we shouldn't ignore this. Okay.
True.
Okay. And what do you think it might be? We don't have to get into the nitty gritty because we're on YouTube and stuff. But
Yeah.
do you think this is related to the experiment? And should we be highlighting this more and researching this more?
I'm skeptical still. I'm not convinced that it actually is. And I'm all for looking at alternative theories in that, but I don't know that, like, they had a number of morticians there that were actually stating, saying, this is what we're seeing. So part of me wants to take that on and say, okay, yes, but something just doesn't feel right about it to me.
That's where I'm coming from. Okay, I want to be careful. I don't want to believe this. Okay.
No.
That's the truth. Like, I'm coming from that bias. I don't want this to be a truthful thing. Keeping an open mind, understanding that we definitely have spikes. We definitely have SADs now. We definitely have at least a lot more reporting around sudden everything. So I don't want to put my head in sand and ignore it, especially with Alberta with a 600% increase in unknown. With that said, what I'm concerned about is, what if this is a red herring? Turns out that was McDonald's and Wendy's all along, right? And
Monsanto GMO modified foods, right? Yeah.
something along those lines. Like, it's just something that is also now being reported because everybody's super sensitive to what's going on, and then it discredits the entire action of trying to find out what is going on. So I'm on the fence. I want to see more, and if this is something, certainly testing. Other than calling it white fibrous material or clots, what is it? Break it down, analyze it, get into it. Tell me what we're dealing with here.
Well,
try and reproduce the creation of it. Do some science on it.
Well, exactly. And they had all these examples of these clots. Why hadn't anybody sent these to a lab for a breakdown? I'm sure that all these people are very intelligent and have access to people within labs that would be more than willing to here's a sample. Tell us what it is.
And that might be coming. So we'll give them that.
And if they can corroborate that and determine what is causing that, okay. You got me, because now you got me on fact. Right now, It just seems that there's not enough meat there.
I felt feeling the same way after 2,000 Mules.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, that was an interesting thing. The technical data, that's all very interesting. What you're doing with it is very interesting. But I felt like it wasn't complete, and I wasn't even convinced in the end.
It's just like right up to the line, and then it's like, no. It kind of stopped.
And that might be a good representation of our desire to be non-biased and look at it for what it is. And it kind of just took us to a certain spot, but didn't take us all the way. So that might be a reflection on how well we're looking at this right now.
Yeah, and trying to be objective. I mean, I think if there was more factual data that was in that, then I could get on board and certainly wonder, more. I mean, I'm still wondering, like, I mean, what are the long-term effects of things, or these particular products on our health? Where things going to be in 5 years? We don't know this yet.
And that's why it's scary, because we're in the middle of an experiment. All of this is going to come out.
Yep.
Birth defects, birth rates, fertility, all of that's going to be coming out as we're learning. Okay, so enough of that subject for a little bit here, unless everybody wants to get back to it. If you don't mind, I'm going to jump back into the chat a little bit.
Sure. Oh, that was Steve Kirsch, I think, who funded that one. That's right. I don't think Stu,
the video?
Yeah, died suddenly, so I don't think Stu Peters was involved in that.
Okay. But maybe there'll be a second one. There should be a lot more research. Maybe Alberta will open up and research more and look into the deaths here focus
Yeah.
on that. Terry, there's a big one here. Maybe to be fair, the mainstream legacy journalism, we should be separating the wheat from the chaff, etc. What are the percentage of biased, honest, and transparent reporting? Difficult prospect? Very difficult. If you're leaving that up to the consumer to figure out, that's where the trouble happens, Terry. Because the consumer is not going to do that. They just want the bread. They don't even want to deal with the wheat and the chaff. They want the bread. And they're going to keep buying Wonder Bread because that's what they've always bought. Even when fresh bread from the bakery is right beside it, they're going to buy that prepackaged sliced bread that fits in their toaster. So Terry, no, it's not. Yeah, it is a difficult prospect for sure, because you're asking people to do more work than they're historically willing to do. And this is why media is such an important piece of our democracies, because you got to be able to give them in digestible chunks the truth. So I think there's going to be the job, Terry, of independent journalism to do this and to keep doing this. Maybe we'll get there faster when we work together like this. Azaria, what have you been thinking about doing with some of your time if we're not doing full-time streams anymore? Do you want to get more involved, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking I can get involved some more. Certainly, it's about balance, right? And how much time that I can commit to it. I do have a lot of work commitments, but certainly I think there's time for me to be able to contribute and help out. So, yeah, I'm in. Going back to your comment there, I just actually was reading a story this morning about Blacklocks getting kicked out of the press gallery at.
Yeah, I read that too. I got that sent to me. Okay, so who are they? And now I'll also get into the parliamentary side.
Blacklocks reporters, they really are kind of, everybody labels them as far right, kind of spinning that, but they're an independent journalist that is based in Ottawa. They attend and report on all the press briefings that are there. They have a subscriber-based model, so they actually got evicted from the parliamentary press gallery on Friday by police. Yep. So just because it was said that they were being rude to other press representatives. So you've got an independent that's getting kicked out of the House of Commons press gallery. Like, see, tying that back to Terry's point there is just like, how do we trust the sources if we know that the sources are corrupt and they're not willing to? I'll walk that back. We have reason to believe that there is misrepresentation, perhaps, is probably the best way to say it, or not stating the complete truth by our mainstream media, and selective reporting. So when you don't have independents that can come along and give you the straight goods on things, then where are you at? Same idea.
I'm just on Twitter right now, and it's functioning better. My hearts don't vanish as much. My retweets work. I wonder if something has been changed. Just noticed that right there. So back, what are they called?
Blacklocks.
Okay, so I read the article. Someone sent it to me on Twitter. That's why I was jumping over there looking for it. That is the challenge, right? There was 3 reporters, 2 mainstream, 1 independent, who filed the complaint. The other 14 desks did not. So that's telling me there's 20 people there. So him plus 3 is 4, so 21 people, 21 desks or whatever. What would you accept if he was or they were not being good neighbors and were being aggressive? And what if these complaints are actually true?
Well, normally in any fair situation, you'd get censured, right? And you would say, okay, well, you got this amount of time, you're being put on notice, improve your behavior, stop being perhaps rude to people. And if you don't do it by this date, then you're gone.
Well, what if that's been done?
Yeah, we don't know. Sorry,
I
Jay,
would expect it would have been, yeah.
I would think so too. I actually just posted that link accidentally as you again on Facebook and YouTube. So
okay.
There's that blacklocks.ca is their site,
cool.
and kind of giving them. So
okay, no, cool. I'll take a look at that as well. But I will take it from the standpoint that there's more to this story than we'll hear. And if we're listening to the one side, There's 2 reporters plus a independent involved in that made a complaint. Again, I also don't like the fact that only 3 people was enough to cause an action, but we don't know the rest of it.
Yeah,
I'm sure we're going to find out more as this breaks.
100%. So
Yeah. And yeah, don't worry about that linking as me. That's fine. I only got my hand slapped once over that. And that was somebody who said, I'm trying to scold them or slap their hand for language. And I just redirected them to Facebook because the reason for the post was to keep us on Facebook.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it was a good post. It's just only one time. I was surprised to read it. I'm like, oh, well, I agree with the post. I just didn't see my name on it until now. So Terry says, sorry, I kind of jumped around here. Oh, wow. I'm way high up there. Okay, hold on. Here we go. Terry, my favorite part of will be the winning all your money. Oh, the poker. So he's talking about poker. So yeah, he's looking forward to playing your poker.
Yep. Good times. We'll see you Saturday night there, Terry.
Mm-hmm. And Terry will reach out with the address and stuff at some point for you. Bias came out. She believes that they were mostly right wing, not very good observer for a journalist. Do you know what Terry's referring to here?
Yeah, that was around Michelle Goldberg.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Michelle. Here we go. And then Terry again. Great point. I think that point of mainstream media burying their retractions or just deleting them, assuming people are still into that limited hangout sphere. Nope. We are into never forget. What if there was a way to be a lot cleaner and better on knowing that? Like, for example, the original article also has a redaction at the very top or something like that. So that when you're going back to original article, you can find it. Or some sort of mechanism where they have to do it a certain way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, outside of using the Wayback Machine and kind of going to see what the status is and of that particular article previously, but you won't know unless you actually query that particular page and see how many times it's been edited. So,
well, my entrepreneurial brain has been working on this issue for a while. How to try and get trust back into the media that we find online. And what I came up with was something called Fix or Fail. I got the domain, all that kind of stuff, but Fix or Fail. So the idea there is you can take an article, CBC, whatever the article is, you drop it into this website, and then you can edit it. So you can edit the headline, you can edit the article, and your changes are tracked, much like Microsoft Word changes and stuff like that. And then what you can do is you can kind of vote or publish your version of that story, superimposed. So it's very clear and transparent. It's saying, here's the original story, and then here's our Zario's edits to it or corrections to it. And then through community-based, crowd-based, we will vote up and we will finally correct the story. And the idea there is to identify stories that are just slightly off and just need a correction, or ones that have failed. Okay, so a failing grade on a story is it's just so far off through all these sources and reviews, and even people are, they're credited and they got credentials, and they're finding the errors of a way to superimpose the errors on top of the original article. 2 questions. Do you think people would consume media that way, where they're getting the corrected version by the crowd? And 2, do you think people would want to do that kind of work and go and start correcting CBC, CTV, Global, CNN, whoever, in their articles? Because there's some truth in them, just it's hidden.
It's an interesting pretense. I like the idea on its surface. I'm going to have to think about that a little bit more, because I akin it to Wikipedia as well, where Wikipedia has kind of gone really, I want to say left, and there's a lot of can be factually incorrect information out there. So the inherent problem I see with the idea is making sure that there isn't a bias. I mean, whoever's reviewing it or writing changes or edits to it is going to impart their own bias onto that particular article.
Sure.
So ultimately, what you can have 2 things happening. Either you're going to have, perhaps, or 3 things, I guess. But you could have somebody right wing that reviews the article and suggests edits and says this is what's accurate and this is what should be. Somebody that's left leaning, reviews the article and says here's what these are. somewhere in the middle of that, you actually have the truth.
Mhm.
You would think, and that should be what the article is then modeled after. So
It's going
that's
to be
where
tough to keep bias though, because that's just human nature. But when you have a collection of people's input on the article, bias should kind of naturally be muted because it's both sides are talking or all sides are talking. So, for example, let's say Rachel Gilmore?
Mhm.
Yeah, so she puts out an article, and then Matt Taibbi and a couple other people, Viva Fry, a couple other people go and correct it. And then you can say, well, give me from this strain of reporters, give me their version or correction or even, yeah, I just want to say with correction because I don't want to call redaction or anything like that.
No.
Because there's a lot of truth in the media now. It's just mixed up with narrative and
Yep.
falsehoods. So if we had a way of removing them or correcting them, you can then consume CBC, CTV, Global, and find some truth in it. And what might happen to the Rachels and the other reporters out there, because as Prairie says, as long as you name the false report as well. Of course, the byline's going to be there, and any edits that they make after is also going to be there. The whole purpose, Prairie, is to get them accountable. So when they are writing their story and the editors are changing the headlines, they know that within minutes, Fix or Fail is going to give them a grade. And very quickly, there's going to be some sort of accountability on fact checking and stuff like that. It could be a way of integrating fact checking with media, with sourcing from the crowd, and then out pops truth. It might be a way to get there without destroying the entire system and starting all over. Because that could be they could be worried about that. What will be my fix or fail score? Am I going to get an A? Am I going to get an F? Am I going to fail completely? Is it just minor changes like typos, or is it material changes? That could be a way of even scoring media.
Yeah. There's a lot of inputs to that, Jay. I look at, and also that organization that was actually hosting this service has to be like non-partial, non-biased, just like straight down the middle, and in order for it to be successful, or and credible, right? That's
Right.
I think the key.
Well, I think for that is just like Section 320 or no 230. We don't make any changes. We let the community do it. The community can vote up and down on edits. They can add their own edits. And unlike Wikipedia, because Wikipedia functions on a crowd editing system, but it produces the final version. And then, you can go through the history. This is a superimposed one. So you're always going to see the original article behind with the changes. You can do a merge button like in Word. You can say merge, produce a new document, and then that's what I'm going to read. But the idea is always to keep in mind where the errors were, where the fixes were, so that people can then make the decision on, okay, so they said a group of racists, and then somebody changes that to saying one racist named Bill, and he was the only one there. That kind of stuff.
The other thought that I had around this was, if you're mainly looking at, like, if you want to look at all news sources, that would be ideal. But I think if you set this up out of the gate, you'd be predominantly targeting a lot of the mainstream, which are mainly left-leaning sources right now. So then,
Well, you let the crowd do it. We don't actually pick the topics.
sure, okay,
Right.
but I think that there might be a little bit of a predisposition to go after the kind of left-leaning media, and that'll be done by right kind of leaning reviewers. And so ultimately you're going to have, all these left-leaning media sites being kind of edited, spot checked, called out.
Right.
What is the incentive then for the left-leaning media to come into that fray and just say, well, no, I'm going to leave my story alone. I don't care about what you guys are doing.
The same reason that the writer doing it is to attack the other's narrative and try and correct it. So what you'll then see is the Malcolms of the world going after Matt's articles and doing his edits to them as well.
You could hope. It's just, I think getting both teams to play ball in this would be the trick.
Well, that's where nature takes over. Organic grassroots takes over. If they don't have a desire to do that, there could be another reason. Maybe there isn't corrections. Maybe they don't have a desire to expose themselves as someone who wants to change the narrative. In either case, I think organically and naturally, what we'll end up with is far more truth. And that's the end goal. Like the inputs are going to vary, Okay, the inputs are going to vary, but the output should be, well, at least a far closer to the accurate story. So the CBC article could be 80% bang on. They spoke to people, they even got the other side, but it's the headline that's wrong. And the first two paragraphs are just lit with narrative. That might be a helpful way to encourage the CBC media to stop doing that, because they keep getting exposed every time they do it. And then B, a much more truthful source for people to get that also includes left, right, center, mainstream, alternative media. It includes all of them. And that's what I personally would like to see. I would like to see a fixed up Rebel article. I'd like to see a fixed up CBC article. And then through reading both of them after they've been crowd fixed, to actually have a good idea of, well, boy, they're awfully close in what they're saying. And I can now see the truth is, the government's passing parliamentary process. Both of them actually say that. One says it's good for democracy. The other says it's not good for democracy. And then that's where I'm left with my decision.
Yeah. I like the idea. I like the outputs. I just, the one thing that I just actually had the thought about was around the sterility of kind of articles. Like today you don't really necessarily, you've got a lot more emotion and feel into an article depending on where the writer is coming from. And this may or may not happen. You would have to see and test it and A/B it to see what happened to an article, and it's kind of
A/B it.
Like it's personnel. Well, yeah, I'm all about A/B tests and doing things like that. But go through that process and see what how much of that original journalist's flavor comes through on the edited article. Is it now less personable or not as touchy-feely as they wanted it to be? Like that's what I like. Part of it I think might get lost in kind of the editing, but it may not. But then if it self-corrects and causes journalists to go through this, ultimately then our journalists will all kind of sound the same. And that would be my only concern out of that. And I think that's just we would have to see what happens. And
well, I do accept that actually as not a bad thing. So if they are starting to all sound the same, but they have to focus on finding the stories, and that's where their actual meat and potatoes are, is actually going to find stories where they're not being fed them anymore through Twitter or otherwise. They become more investigative and they do more reporting and journalism. I'm okay with that. And I'm also okay with if it becomes so sterile, kind of like medical or legal, that's okay with me, because that leaves an entertainment market completely open for the taking. If you want tabloid, you want to go back to that kind of world, you want celebrity, you want fun and games with your media and information, there's still a place for that. I don't know. I kind of like that legal, sterile digest approach. But I understand that, this is a clickbait world. It's a negative news world. It's the audience wants to consume a certain type of media. I get that. So
yeah, it would be hard pressed to go look at like medical journals and read those all day long. I I would be falling asleep pretty quickly. But that it's the same thing. Is that you're tailoring it for your consumer who's taking that information. So,
well, that would be good for people like me that want to consume it and then report back to you. So provide the videos, provide the chat, provide the streams. But at least I'm pulling from a much better source. Because we can say we're pulling from mainstream media that's been fixed.
Yep.
It had a passing grade, so we're using it. And Prairie here highlighted that the CBC has turned off comments because of harassment and stress on employees. They don't like the backlash of untruths. Yahoo did that too. Yahoo did that in 2019 or something like that. Because that's where I get a good chunk of my morning news, my wake up news, as I scroll through Yahoo, because it's a collection of all mainstream. And if you know how to read mainstream, you can still get news out of it. Yep. And what used to happen, it was the comments were fantastic. You would go to the comments and you would get the exposés, you would get the corrections, you would get that. But then they turned it off, and there's a message that said, we're just temporarily doing this. Temporarily has been multiple years now. Yeah.
That all kind of started at the beginning of the pandemic, because everything was just getting lit up. Like all the articles that were getting posted were just over the top. And then, yeah, pretty much anything that's sensitive or could be, I guess, inflammatory, a big issue is they turn off the comments for, which, yeah.
Yeah,
So much,
100. Sorry.
so much for the exchange of ideas and trying to understand how fellow Canadians feel on that. So thanks, state journalism.
No kidding. And it was all around the same time, too. So it kind of coordinated. And
Well,
I think it was around 2019, which is it started pulling from the fund, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the other point. This is the broadcaster we as Canadians pay for through our tax dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to entertain what Canadians have to think or say about their articles. Ooh. That's
And
not
who's
right.
exposing them and who's keeping them accountable?
Nobody. They're all I would say between CTV, CBC, Global, they're in cahoots with one another. They've got those secret handshake meetings that kind of go on, and they will disagree to a certain amount with each other. But there's, I think, really hard barriers or guardrails that they've put in place to say, no, we're not going to, throw you under the bus on this one here. Even if we see it, and we ask you do the same for us. So scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
And let me ask a question of Prairie here. You make your own bread, Prairie? I used to do that too. Used to make like 6 loaves a week, a whole day of it. But my question to you, Prairie, because I think this is a response to the wheat chaff comment, where I'm saying people like to get the prepackaged bread and not necessarily the freshly baked one. For you, Prairie, how much do you still rely on flour, yeast? Do you do your own yeast? How much do you still rely? Like, how much of that bread can you create if the store shut down? I'd like to know the answer to that. I'd like to get to a certain point as well. So that's why I'm asking that question. Do you know who Ryan Cole is? Terry's bringing up Ryan Cole. Let's take a look at Ryan Cole's work, Terry says. Terry, who's Ryan Cole? RyanCole. I don't know if he's a real estate guy.
Yeah, that was the first one that came up for me too.
I'm looking for an MP. There's LGBTQ, Ryan, Special Olympics Canada. So, Terry, who is Ryan Cole? Gets deleted, but will improve the film's believability. Agrees, slickness does work in documentary genre. So, yeah, let us know who Ryan Cole is. Maybe he's a documentary filmmaker. Something like that.
Oh, he's a director-writer. If you check him on IMDb, I think.
Okay.
He did Stranger Things, Free Guy, and Invisible Man. So
You know him personally, Terry? If you do, maybe we can get him on and chat with him. So let's go ahead and pull him up here. Because we found out that Terry is Canada Hollywood. So he's a representation there. So I'll go ahead and pull this up here, Terry.
Oh, Dr. Ryan Cole, he's saying.
Dr. Ryan Cole. So we got too many here. Okay.
Not that it's a popular name or anything, right?
Ryan Cole, Idaho doctor, makes claims. Oh, so they're saying baseless on fact checker already. Dr. Ryan Cole defends his medical license. Okay.
It's a pathologist. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're attacking him pretty harsh, which means he's probably right. Okay. I can see right away the news is taking a very aggressive approach to him. Okay.
Yeah,
I will.
He was promoting alternative therapies and that sort of thing. So, which we won't name here.
Oh, the IVA?
Yep.
Okay.
Eva.
Yeah, we're not talking about the lawyer for
No.
Yeah, no, we get it. That's sad, especially when it's a life saving, and who are to say what does and doesn't work so early. And yeah, I really dislike how the only difference between conspiracy theory and the truth is 9 months, something like that, 9 or 12 months. Eventually, the theories come out to be relatively, for the most part, shown to be based in some truth there. So we'll take a look at Ryan Cole there, Terry.
Yep.
And then Clay was mentioning that he just started looking at Blacklock's article as well.
Yep. I'm trying to find this one article that was on the Ontario College of, or basically College of Physicians. We were talking about this last week. I think it was around they made some guide or recommendations for or for physicians, basically around vaccine hesitancy itself.
Mm-hmm. Now, pre or post COVID, because we had two different definitions of vaccine hesitancy and vaccine, and those are two different times in the timeline. So we're talking about post COVID right now, right?
Well, yeah, in the current time. So,
Okay. Because there used to be anti-vaxxers. That used to be the before COVID. That was a different group.
yeah,
That group suddenly is not anymore, apparently.
yeah, I can't seem to find the article on their site. It was there last week, so it was.
It's already been
around-
deleted.
Yeah, I think it's already been scrubbed. So,
Yeah, fixed or facts, or what do we call it? Fix or fail would have had a copy.
mhm.
And Terry, I don't know what's going on with your chats. He says his chats keep disappearing. You're even a moderator, Terry, so I'm confused why you'd be having any trouble. Sorry, man. Keep trying. You're saying, Rosario?
I'm actually gonna throw this into the Wayback Machine.
Oh, try and find it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll keep going here. So Terry's chats are back. Dr. Ryan Cole. Thank you, Terry. No. Dr. Ryan Cole is a pathologist. Okay, I think we now found him. I meant to do not like sickness in documentary. Okay, Terry. Slickness. Yeah, so where they're adding a little bit of jazz and stuff. I agree, Terry. That whole, again, if we didn't watch the POC, I wouldn't have known as much as I knew about that little tiny clip, but I'd only seen that in there. No grinder yet. I haven't tried a starter or polish yet, but I think of trying that for sure. Yeast getting pricey. Yeah, you can do your own shortbread that way. You get some yeast
I
going.
do my own sourdough.
Sourdough, that's it. That's sourdough. Yeah. I've tried it a couple times. The starting it is hard.
Sourdough likes to be warm, really warm to get going. So,
And then Terry's got some more info here. Dr. Ryan Cole showed up all the time with Dr. Peter McCall and Malone and Markey or Macus? Who's Market? Is that Macus he means there?
Merrick,
Merrick and Uso and the bunch. I'll see what I can find as an interview and post it. What you could do, Terry, is if you want to do a little bit of digging in there and then jump back on the stream. We got about an hour left, so I'm going to go ahead and kill this at noon Eastern time. So we got about an hour left because a lot of us have a lot of work to do. So a 3-hour morning coffee, I think we'll do that. Polish. 10th, how you doing, bud? I saw you did a video the other day. I didn't get to watch it, but I see that you're doing more of that. Thank you, 10th. Get that voice out there, buddy. And look at that nice Azario. Azario's doing the work of a yeoman. He's going to go and try and find the information we're looking for here.
trying to.
Yeah. Now, there's another video that got sent to me that people might want to check out. I'll just throw it up on here. I won't play it because I don't know the copyright rules. It's on Odyssey. I got a link for it. It's called The Shadow State, a feature documentary by the Epoch Times, just released about a week ago. So let me throw this in, an hour and a half or so. Oh, and then Terry just shared a Rumble link as well. So here's something else you guys can check out to fill up your day, and we can maybe talk about it tomorrow. Let me go and get that link from Rumble from Terry. Terry, you're just on fire, bud. Let me go get it. Profile. So many windows, so much going on. There we go. Terry, thank you so much, buddy. Rumble. Here we go. Oh, cool. So there's a bunch of videos. So what Terry provided, there's a link to search Rumble for Doctor. And let me bring that up because there's quite a few videos. Thank you, Terry. Dr. Ryan Cole.
I haven't found that yet, but I'm going to go back and I've got it around somewhere. So
I remember seeing that. I think somebody shared that link at one point about the Ontario.
I completely read it on their site. I remember 100% seeing, where it was like, if somebody's not willing to take COVID vaccine, maybe you should refer them to a psychotherapist,
Mental health, yeah.
mental health, wellness, and get them checked out. It's like, anyways, I'm gonna jump. Jay,
Hey, bud. Well, thanks a bunch for hanging out for a bit.
yeah, no, thanks for having me, and we'll be catching up with you, and certainly I'll see if I can jump on a little later this week. So,
Sounds good.
all right, have a good one. Bye, folks.
Take care, bud. Say bye, everybody, for Rosario. Give some more love in the chat to Rosario. All right, so Terry is saying Dr. Cole was on Dr. Drew. Okay, cool. Dr. Drea has been on an interesting journey from TV doctor to okay, cool. And then what's this? Huh? Are you all talking about, don't know what that, Konski? What is that, their 10th? Is that something that's breaking? I don't know what that is. So the answer is no, we're not talking about it. OMSKY. Gnome. Some dude. American public intellectual, linguist, philosopher. This guy. What about him? Let us know a little bit more of their 10th. Take care, Rosario. Cool. Thanks, Clay. And Prairie, that letter to doctors in Ontario. Did you find it, Prairie? Later, Rosario. Yeah, no, yeah, I see him here. What about him? There's something special about him, Terry? Or whatever. Yeah, you found him. I found him. What's the story, though, 10th? What's going on with him? Do you want to come and tell us? No jabs into the camps. Hey, why don't you just come join us there, 10th? Let me send you the link. If you want to jump on. Remember, it's an early morning show, if you don't mind there, bud. But I do want to hear what you have to say. So here, I'll throw it in the link. Want to join us there, 10th. Terry's back. Remember, hey, Terry, it's an early morning show, if you don't mind there, bud. Oh, but I do want to hear what you have to say. So you got to mute one of your streams there, Terry, and then you can come back. We have a echo there. But 10th might be joining us as well here. So Terry, let me see if your echo's gone. One of your nope, we just lost Terry. Terry can come back. 10th is here. So 10th, you want to go ahead and tell us what's going on with
I
this,
only have a minute. I only have a
we'll
couple
take
minutes here, but
we'll take it. Thanks, bud.
Listen, this is why I don't have friends, and this is why I don't have heroes. This is why I don't have anybody that I look up to or trust, or is because, like, I remember almost 30 years ago now, a guy said, "Oh, you gotta look at this Noam Chomsky guy. He's got this book about the deep state, blah 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 blah." I'm like, okay. So I think it was Chomsky. I don't even remember. Anyway, so I've watched a lot of documentaries of Chomsky about anti-religion and blah 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 blah. And I went down that road for a while because I was a rebelling youth, and so it made sense. But I saw the video. I think it was on Crowder quite a few times. He's very mad about it. And Chomsky literally went on to a podcast and said, well, if you don't want to get the jab, you need to be put into a camp and re-educated.
Okay.
The video's out there.
Okay,
so that's what I thought you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Did you ever see the video?
Nope, but I'll be looking for it now.
Well, this is the thing, is I came to the internet 3 years ago screaming, they're going to throw us on trains and put us into fire pits. And everybody's like, you're crazy. Now we've got some of the most highly, followed intellectual people out there. Chomsky, he's huge, right? Thousands of people at conferences and stuff. And he's like, oh, yeah, we just got to throw them into camps. And I'm like, what? How can... Isn't that a jailable offense?
Jailable?
I thought it was,
but it's
I thought it was
dangerous.
Well, okay. I thought that saying to throw a certain segment of a population into death camps was illegal.
Would you call that hate speech?
I would call that calling for murder.
Well, Okay, yes, I see where you're headed, because this is exactly what the big problem was many moons ago. What he's calling
Right.
for here, putting people on trains and camps and stuff like that. I understand the problem there.
And if I'm not mistaken, he's Jewish.
Possibly. I don't know if that plays a role, other than he should know better than calling for
Well, yeah.
systemic anything.
It's adorable. So how can we have laws in Canada that say that you're not allowed to dispute anything about the Holocaust, but you can have people go around and say, "Oh, just throw more people in camps if they don't want to do what they're told"?
Well, because Canada did that to the Japanese.
No, I know. No, America did it to the Japanese. We did it to the natives.
We also did to Japanese. World War II.
I don't think we did it to Japanese.
Almost definitely. So this is why I question whether or not you're Canadian. I love you, bud, but this is common knowledge. So just a second. Japanese, Canada. It was our biggest stain from World War II. We grabbed them all up. Okay.
I may have been aware that we did it too. I have so much information in my head that.
Yeah, this was our biggest stain in Canada when it came to racially camping a bunch of people. And this happened
after the natives, but yeah.
Yes. No, I'm not saying only time. This is the one that we're bringing up. That happened. Okay. So, anyways. Okay, so that's scary talk. Anytime you hear anybody talk like that, and 10th is 100% right for bringing this up and bringing it to our attention. Right, Terry? Like, anybody that's talking about taking any group, whether it's a sports fan or a vaccinated person or whatever, and camping them is dangerous.
Okay, but Jason, I have a video that I've played on YouTube a few times where I called my power corporation because they did some stuff that made me really frustrated, and then they refused to even talk to me about it. All I was looking for is like $100 off my power bill for their mistake, right? Like just do something as a gesture. And then they just told me, too bad. So I started going on my rant, and that's before I even came to YouTube about, oh yeah, it's all fine and dandy. You're a corporation, you're a crown corporation or whatever. So you just get away with anything. And then, same thing as when you throw us into the camps, it'll be perfectly fine, which I don't know if you caught my show over the last couple of days. But they're explaining how we don't have property rights here and how the monetary system is a scam. And so anyway, I was telling the power company this, and how you're just I'm sure you'll just, be a clerk at one of the depots where they're throwing people onto trains and throwing them into fire pits, and it'd be perfectly fine. And then the police showed up at my house saying that I said that we should throw all the gays onto trains and the Jews. And that's not what I said, and I had the phone call recorded, and the police left. But so did the police go to Chomsky's house? Because he actually said it recorded.
Right.
I'm just wondering, because it seems like there's one set of rules for this group of people, and there's another set of rules for this group of people. I have to defend myself. He gets away with it. Why?
Well, you're asking for a free, just system that doesn't exist. You already know that. So I think the bigger question here, 10th, is what can we do about it?
Told you. But I'm going to keep saying the same thing till everybody realizes it.
What is it?
You have to start by knowing where you stand. These people see us as livestock to be used as a resource or disposed of as they see fit. And then the next step is make me Prime Minister of Canada. Every minute that I'm on the job, I wear a 3D camera. All gets recorded. We can have a certain amount of time allotted for secret meetings. And we're going to do the same thing as I do on YouTube. If people don't want to have a meeting with me because it's going to be recorded, well, then I'm going to ask everybody in Canada, I need you guys to research this person. We need to know everything about them, and we're going to tear them to shreds. Don't care if they're a member of parliament. What's that?
What's that last part mean? Tear them to shreds. What does that mean?
We're going to find out every horrible thing they've ever done in their life and publicly shame them.
To the individual, not the institution?
To the individual, the institution, and the whole thing. The whole thing.
I'm on board with the institution and the person inside the institution, not the private, right? So is there a distinction in your mind?
There's no such thing. There's no such thing. Because I don't have a private life. Right? The government's allowed to record my phone calls. The government's allowed to declare war on me if I protest. Government's allowed to take my money. Government's allowed to do whatever they want. So there's no such thing as private. They already crossed that line. Soon as they declared war on our citizenry, all rules were gone. So I told you, law is fiction. The rules are gone. There's no more public. There's no more private. There's no more rules. There's no more laws. It's all gone. As soon as they crossed that line and declared war on the citizenry of Canada, all bets are off. It's done.
And is this the government or the current government? Has it always
Don't
been
matter.
doing this, or is this current one?
None of that matters. The future is the only thing that matters. And the only way to fix it is to start paying attention to it. How many people, sir, do you believe in the entirety of the 38 million people in Canada, just in Canada, how many total citizens do you think paid attention to even one day's worth? Just one 8 to 10 hour in total of the entire month of the Emergency Act inquiry. How many people?
Less than 1%.
I say less than 100,000.
Well, we
I'd
had
say
some
maybe
numbers on
closer
YouTube
to
and it was very low.
20,000.
Yeah, you may not be wrong at all, because even the numbers on YouTube weren't large.
So you need a guy like me to go up there with a 3D camera, and when this member of parliament doesn't show up for the meeting with me, we go right to his office. We go right to his office, wherever the hell he is, and we have the meeting. And then he walks away from me, and he doesn't want to have the meeting. So I just conduct the meeting while I'm following him around.
So
we're going to have the
guerrilla
meeting, bro.
journalism. Yeah, you guerrilla them in.
But I'm the Prime Minister of Canada. You can't call the cops on me. Get it? See, that's the game we got to start playing. We got to take Trump's game and we got to take it up 300 million notches. I'm going to abuse my power so blatantly that people will be shocked.
Well, I think
I'm going to use my parliamentary privilege. I'm going to get what?
I said, I think you would get support. Are you going to try? Are you going to actually try? The election might be in the spring.
Oh, no. I'm not going up and dancing around. I've already got 3 years worth of shows. Everybody knows who I am. So you guys make me prime minister. It's not my job to prove that I need to be prime minister. It's the country's job to prove that they deserve me as their prime minister.
Best of luck with that. Terry, we knew.
Then then everybody can burn in the fire pits. Well, I don't care.
I think you should keep telling us, reminding us, so we don't forget exactly what's coming if we don't get proper leadership and some good oversight and stuff going on. So, Terry, based on what Tent's saying there, what do you think? I know it's a long question, sorry.
There are certain things that I agree with Tenth on. I would say we did come pretty close to some very scary times, dipping over into the abyss. I mean, after that long year and a half of relentless fear mongering, we ended up with a comment like a Noam Chomsky, and also a frontline headline in the Toronto Star, right, saying the unvaccinated should not be allowed into the ICU, and we hope they die. So, I mean, we're definitely pushed to a point. Now, on the other hand, and I understand Tent's frustration, I don't know if at this point I would join in the brigade with him. I tend to be more of a don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think we have a lot still to save, but there's what's happening at every single institution. I would hope that Tenth would agree with me here that every single institution that means anything to us has certainly a degree of corruption in it, whether it be totally corrupt or partially corrupt or whatever. Now, what that movement is forward, I would think if Tenth were to run for prime minister, with the rest of the Canadian public or a majority want to vote that kind of aggressive stance in. Is that needed right now? And, not to take away from tense frustration and, bordering on angry, he's had his experience. I've not yet come close to that, so I can't judge him, right? And, where do we go from here? Well, I see slow, methodical, positive pushes forward everywhere I look. It with 10th, I'm going to assume that isn't enough. The system has to be challenged and perhaps totally changed. I'm just not at that point yet, and so.
But how long have you been fighting this fight? How long have you been fighting this fight?
Well, for me, I started looking at the monetary system 12, 15 years ago.
No, but I'm saying how long have you been calling your government representatives, dealing with the police, trying to actually bring attention to stuff and or being harassed by the government and or the police for no illegal acts whatsoever? See, because I've been fighting this fight for well over a quarter of a century. Right. So I've already tried to go through all the processes. Like when I went to the police and reported the 3 different people that molested me before I was 14 years old. And they told me, well, there's no evidence. And, just on and on and on and on. Like I'm talking hundreds of interactions where every single time it's just like, oh, well, sorry, nothing we can do. Or, oh, well, if you do this again, then we're going to do that. And then you say, well, throw the cuffs on me. I don't know. I don't know who you think you're talking to. So it comes to a certain point where you realize that it's not just a certain level of corruption. What we saw during the Emergency Act inquiry was absolute disregard and malice from every level of government institution that there is. So these people see us as livestock. I think that I'm a moderate. I think that because you don't see me calling for violence, you don't see me calling for the overthrow of the government, you don't see me, nothing like that. All I'm calling for is accountability. So that you would even preface it that I'm in any way radical or aggressive or angry. This is me on a day-to-day basis. This is me calm, right? And that's the problem. I think the majority of citizens in Canada / the planet are a bunch of lazy cowards. And that's what I was saying last night on my show, is I kind of think that everybody deserves what's happening. I think we deserve the New World Order because bunch of lazy little cowards, and I'm trying not to swear right now, but that's how I usually conduct myself, is a bunch of little kids crying because mommy said their curfew is going to be earlier than it was. That's what this is. Like everybody asking for permission from their masters. This is adorable that's even how this works. Like I can't believe that 100,000 people didn't storm those inquiries when Trudeau was in there and just deal with it. I can't believe that it didn't happen. And it's because all the little cowards are just sitting around going, oh, someone will fix it. Something will happen. But as everybody may be aware, that's what I've really been waiting for 2 weeks to talk to Jason about, but I got to go here. I got to literally have 7 minutes. But am I mistaken that this inquiry was not to decide whether or not it was okay and or legal or justified for them to invoke the Emergency Act, but instead was actually there to just investigate why it was done and have recommendations as to how to do it in the future. There's not going to be any recompense. There will be nobody held to account for this in any way, correct?
Okay, so there's a load question. So the last part, held accountable, I think you're correct on that. There's nothing coming out of this inquiry to hold anybody accountable. There is no powers for penalty. This middle part of your question, which was whether or not there's going to be a decision. First, it was recommendations, and then your first one was a decision. So the recommendations are 100% right. There's going to be a bunch of recommendations. We're going to be looking at recommendations for centralized intelligence. We're going to be looking at recommendation for more progressive boots on the ground process. And then the first part of your question is whether or not there's going to be a decision on whether or not it should have been invoked. I found out recently. I think that is part of the report. So there is going to be a decision from the commissioner, and it was through the way he was talking during the panel discussions last week. It does sound like he does have to decide whether or not it was righteous or justified. Then he has recommendations, and then there's no accountability. Does that help clarify it?
Kinda. That's pretty much what I said. I don't believe that he's going to say. He don't believe he's going to say yes or no. This was legally justified, and then give a reasoning as to why it was justified. I don't believe that's going to happen.
Right. So that's where we can agree to disagree on that part for now, because I do think that is coming out. And I was surprised to hear the talk around that too, because I thought just like you.
I just have a one question to ask, and trust me, I don't have an answer at this point. But are we at the point that it's worth storming the Bastille? Will that just cause chaos? Will that
no, that's never going to work because of the coward Canadians.
Will that just let me finish 10th? So will it cause chaos, or will it lead to the changes that we all know are required in this system to reinstitute our institutions exactly to bring them into clearer focus for Canadians, where there's actual dialogue between those that are supposed to be our representatives, but somewhere along the line have decided that they are our leaders. We've got to take that back. That's for sure. How do we do it? What is the way in which we do it? To me, is still an open question.
You want to respond, 10th?
Yeah, and then I got to go because I got 5 minutes till I'm logging in right now. No, you can't storm anything. Like I said, and I'm sorry for interrupting. It's just I have very little time. Canadians / just citizens are cowards. And it will never work. Listen, I said this before. The people who signed the Declaration, I believe it was Declaration of Independence, I don't even know. But, John Hancock, all the founding members of America, they were like 18, 19, 20 years old.
Yeah, they're young. People would be surprised to learn that.
Back then, people lived to be maybe 40 or 50 years old. And I'm sorry to say this because I'm in my mid-40s. But the simple fact is, all you old, fat, lazy people are useless. Right? As soon as you get to be about 30, 40 years old, you become docile, you become lazy. You're not now all you're worried about is having shelter and food and your family. Shelter, food, family, all that is a liability. Just like a couple weeks ago when I said something about protesting outside government officials' houses, and Jason's like, well, I don't really like the idea of that because of their family. Oh, well, wasn't that just terrible? So their poor family is more important than my rights and my life and future generations. And that's the problem. That's what it comes down to right there, is that somehow, and I'm not trying to attack anybody up here, but somehow you people and or everybody seems to think that your family and your perception of safety, I'm not saying go to people's houses and cause them harm. I'm saying protesting outside their houses. Oh, well, that might hurt their family's feelings. Too bad. Too bad. The hundreds of times that I've had the police sent to my house with false accusations, and never once was any of those people held accountable for sending the police to my house based on false accusations. And now I'm supposed to be worried about a government representative's family and their feelings about things. No one's calling for harm against these people. Just protest. I want their family to know what a piece of crap they are. I don't want them. They don't have the right to go out into the public sphere and then say, okay, well, this is public and this is private, but I'll send the cops to your house and seize your bank account if I want to. This is nonsense.
I don't think you're going to get Canadian support around that, though.
Then burn in the gods, burn in the fire pits.
I think that's the point,
everybody
though, right?
wants an answer, but you don't want to do the hard work to fix what's broken. That's the problem here. Is too bad, so sad. You don't like it, that's just too bad. You cannot, sometimes your house is so dilapidated that you got to tear it down to build it back up. you're not going to be able to fix it. And to sit around and just cry about it and say, oh, well, I don't think that you're going to get people that want to do the things that you want to do. Well, then what's the point? Then
Well,
what's
yeah,
the freaking point?
but replacing it with your my way or the highway that's not going to help. And I disagree wholeheartedly.
But that's what we have right now.
Hold on, Tenth. Let me finish. I'm responding
I
to
have
you.
10 seconds.
Right. Well, okay, quickly in 10 seconds, right? To replace it with that, what you are proposing, right? There is an awful lot of people who have woken up and are waking up. And to call them fat and lazy and that isn't a way to get your point across. I mean, essentially.
Okay, but no. But we've had the 9/11 nonsense for 20 years.
Let me finish. I could say to you, you just insulted me. Like,
Good.
why would you do that? You want me
then
on
melt to death, snowflake. Melt to death, snowflake. Don't care about your feelings. This is not about feelings. This is about reality. I know
reality. It's obviously not your reality. So you're.
But your reality is not real. Your reality is a perception.
Oh, do you, 10th? Okay, that's enough of that. Okay, fine.
Okay, but we can wrap up though, 10th, because you're not wrong, but I think maybe your approach is going to be hard to digest for many. And I think that's what you're seeing here with Terry, and a little bit of pushback from me as well, because we do have to wake up and we do have to be more aggressive. I know,
but 9/11 happened 20 years ago, 21 years ago. No one's done anything about what's been going on up until now, right? So this whole, everybody's waking up. We have time. We don't have any time. I got to go. Peace.
Yeah. I agree we're waking up, but we don't have time. So I agree with you on that.
Peace, 10th.
10th, we'll catch you later, bud. You have a great morning, okay? Take care, bud. There we go. Everybody has strong opinions, and our chat really did align quite well with what 10th was saying there. So we have Lovely here who's agreeing with Lovely Flight, by the way. Nice to meet you. I think it's the first time we're seeing you. Maybe you're a friend of 10th as well. But he has lots of things to say, Terry, about the frustration and the waking up, because I think where I'm going to align with him a bit about his motivation there is we don't have unlimited time. We do have to do something more than just.
We are, but here's where I disagree. We are. We're just not doing it that way. Now, I may have been more on that side back when the Star article came out. It said us vaccinated should not be allowed in the EU, or when Noam Chomsky came out and made that statement. Mm-hmm. I would have been right there kind of going, maybe we are on an edge that we have to, as I call it, storm the Bastille. But since then, it seems to me, my perspective, is that cooler heads prevailed, right? Because right now, like, as I say, am I saying that we don't need to storm the Bastille, that we don't need to? Well, I don't know. I can't predict the future. It just doesn't seem. I think we've come a long way since that Star article. I really do. And I think we're moving even further as well. Do I agree with, it's obvious that tense, there is an underlying anger there. He came out and said that he was abused when he was a child. So, I mean, if I don't know how to, I empathize with him totally. I've not ever had to go through anything like that, close to that, right? So, but I detect, that little bit of underlying anger. And I'm not 100% sure that, I mean, again, I would agree with a lot of the things that you're saying. We do need to stand up. Absolutely 100%. But standing up in that way, I don't think you're going to get the 20 or 30% of the people behind you approaching it in that way. I just don't think so. I mean, put it this way. I don't think a majority would vote him as the PM, though I agree with wearing that camera is absolute fabulous idea. We certainly want truth and transparency. Absolutely 100%. So I'm not disagreeing with a lot of what he said. I'm disagreeing with the approach, and I don't believe we are there yet. Will we get there? Again, I can't predict the future. My gut feeling is that we don't need to. right? And yeah, okay, there are a lot of us older people that are around and enjoy being comfortable. I've worked very hard all my life. I've got a wife, I've got a family, I've got a granddaughter. I enjoy what I've built, right? I am doing it in my way. I don't like being insulted to be, categorized into this compartment of some sort, right? But I am willing to sit and talk with 10th to find out exactly why he's angry. So there's some real personal stuff there that he's pulling into this public stuff that we need to deal with. And you got to be really, really careful of that, right?
Possibly, but where I also see him, just from listening to him for a few weeks now, is he's been like a town crier, saying this for quite some time, and now more and more.
And I think that's great. And I was, as I said, I'll listen to more of him. But that came off a little strong, just as a, we need the crier. We need the information. We need more information.
But we don't want an insider.
All sides, absolutely 100%.
Right. Yeah, and where I want to make sure we're not crossing the line is into incitement. So he's allowed to be a town crier and give the message. And what I think his real value is, especially when I hear him talk like that, is to kind of remind all of us where this could end up. Yes. I don't necessarily mean the trains and stuff like that. He's got to remind us all where this can end up, not because he thinks it can. It's because historically this is exactly where it ends up each and every time. And it's also a reminder to our leaders that the people have the true power. And if they were to storm the doors, they could. Okay. At the end of the day, there would be very little to stop Canada, if we chose to do that, from doing that.
That's what the Freedom Convoy did. They do not want another one in that size coming at that city.
Okay, actually,
absolutely 100%.
Let me bring up this warning because I think this is something that is being
right. But here's another way. Here's another way in which to send them a warning. In the next election, right? Now, I don't know if it's going to go this way. It could be wishful thinking on my part. But in the next election, if we vote out the NDP party, absolutely, or the Liberal Party, like the Conservatives went down to 3 seats back in the 90s there, right? Before Preston Manning came in and brought the two different parties of Conservatives together, right? If one of those parties goes and something like the PPC or something comes in as a new opposition, that'll send a message, right? Yep. Well, there are other ways, right? We just have to figure, okay, what's the strategy? And then what are the tactics in which to achieve a change like that? So they go, holy shit, we do not need to start, number one, listening to the people again. And number two, realizing we aren't their leaders, we are their representatives. We just have, what's the strategy? So I've kind of indicated basic strategy. Well, what are the tactics in which we achieve that?
Well, the strategy that you mentioned there, which is replace them, is the only strategy we have. And then how do we actually make that happen? That's the mission we're on right now.
It's going to be too slow for 10th, and I am absolutely in that category of frustration with him, right? We move this as forward as quickly as we can. It's the how.
Yeah, and 10th, he's such a good he's not an alarmist. See, he does a good job on not getting us to the point where we're alarmed, but we're certainly aware now. So I want to hear him keep that message going, and I don't have a problem with his approach, but I want to make sure
it's not his what. He has got his what completely. I could almost 100% agree with his what and why he is where he is. For me, it's the moving forward. The how do we deal with this? Yeah. That I would have to speak to him a lot more one-to-one and just sort of get inside that person a little bit more so I can understand that element of it, right? But otherwise, you're right. As you called him the town crier. Absolutely. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
And we need that in our functioning.
Yeah, we do. We have to stay awake. We're starting to wake up, but we also have to stay. Those of us who are waking up have to stay awake as we continue to pull the others into awakeness.
Now, speaking about staying awake, this is a warning. I want to warn a lot of people on this. Folks, if you look into this, this is fake news. Okay. They're calling this Freedom Convoy 2.0. Okay. The media is pushing Freedom Convoy 2.0. They're talking about it coming in February. Okay. But what they're not doing properly is identifying exactly who this is. So this is Bauer.
The Bowder. Yeah, Bowder.
Bowder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. This is Canada Unity.
Yeah.
And this really should be labeled Bear Hug 3.0 because that is what this is. But here we go. They're calling it Convoy 2.0. What the media is now doing is they're prepping us for another false flag misinformation around this. Okay, guys? So I want to highlight this now. I got a lot of people sending me tweets and DMs around this.
I am not surprised by this because it's like, okay, I always say there's only, you know, a small percentage of people that always will ruin it for the many. So what are they now doing? Well, I think most of us would agree that when Bowder was on the witness stand, right, there's going to be quite a few that would agree, but there was something, you know, at least for me, I better speak just for myself. I found something a little off. I just wasn't, and I couldn't quite define what that was, but I couldn't put myself 100% behind him. And I just thought, you know, and maybe it was because of a memorandum of understanding and et cetera, et cetera. And so I believe that he was certainly trying his best, certainly from his point of view, but I just couldn't quite put my finger on it to be able to 100% back him up. Who's the person they are now focusing on? Is Bowder, because it really, I guess it's Bowder and his group, Unity Canada, is it, I think? That are Canada Unity, putting it together. So, I mean, that's not surprising that's who they're going to say this whole group is, right? So if you get, let's say 100 people, I'll just use simple numbers. 100 people are James Bowder's, you know, kind of entourage or people that have always supported him. And then you get 10,000 other people who are just there for the freedom element of it. Right? They'll suck in the same narrative again, and they will paint that whole 10,000 people as, you know, insurrectionists and, you know, want the government, you know, to be, you know, so I mean, it's just repeating their same, I'm not going to say strategy, because it's more a tactic, right? They're the same tactics again.
Sure, but my highlight here is not so much Bear Hug or James or Canada Unity, it's the media. So the media are picking up this story and pushing it hard right now. So you have to pay attention to what is the media doing here. They're establishing some sort of foundation, they're setting us up for something coming up here.
Yeah, and that was my point. They picked Bowder and his group because Bowder came off a certain way on the witness stand at the POAC.
Also, they have announced another Bear Hug. So it's not false information. The information isn't false that it's been announced. It's going to arrive on February 17th, 2023. It's leaving the east, the south, and the west, and there's multiple convoys. That's all true. And that they're headed back there. That's all true from, you know, the announcements of the actual logistics. What isn't true is this isn't Convoy 2.0. So this is not the original people behind the convoy. This is a group who pushes the limits. They toenail the line. They definitely go in and stand up for their rights, but their actions, which was the MOU, and I will say the public interactions. So those two things that they took credit for and admitted to on the stand were the biggest problems to having the convoy narrative be truthfully attributed, not truthfully attributed, so that actions that happened truthfully, people were harassed about their masks. There was a food court that was stormed by this group, and they definitely are a little bit more aggressive in their tactics. So all of those were true, being attributed to the entire convoy as a whole. So much so that they're now relabeling this Convoy 2.0 when none of the original convoy, the majority convoy, are behind us at all. Yeah,
they're conflating it. As I said, I'm not surprised at all. Proving again that the mainstream media, in this case CTV News, which proved itself right from the beginning to be a propaganda arm as much as the CBC.
Yeah, CBC is carrying the same article, by the way.
Yeah, they were always pushing the same narrative, and they're just doing it again. Yeah, I am not surprised at all by this. Right.
So what is it? Is it
So,
black swan or black flag? What are we looking at here?
well, I guess it'd be a black swan event, not a false flag. A false flag would be more a shock and awe type of a tactic. Let's call it. This would be more a black swan. They're turning it into a black swan. They're turning the group and the leadership into something it's not. In other words, they're making this new convoy, right, conflating it with the Freedom Corps.
Correct. And the originals, Bridget as well, and the rest.
And the original, right, which Freedom Corps sort of came out of, and then they kind of, I guess they sort of split a little bit somewhere. There seemed to have been maybe a little bit of infighting must have gone on for maybe a conflict of characters, maybe.
Well, the distancing from Pat King came out, right? They were kind of open about distancing themselves from some of his rhetoric.
Here's one for you. It would be if Pat King was going back there, but they can't because he's he's been tied up. So it's Bowder because Bowder's out on Bowder's totally free. So so they got the second most let's call it assumed aggressive.
Yeah, because they definitely openly take it to the limit, but not over. Okay. And because of that, a lot of stink got moved to the entire convoy.
So to get back to your point with what they've already started to do in the mainstream media, if I were this Bear Hug Canada Unity group, I would be very, 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 very careful going to Ottawa, because talk about setting it up as another possible January 6th, which they didn't do, but they wanted to back in February. Of this time, you can guarantee that's what they want to do, is make it into a January 6th. They can do that, and they're already setting it up. So to that group, I would say to James Bowder, if you're listening, be very, very, very careful with your group, right? Make sure there aren't any fringe, any marginalized people that jump on your wagon. Watch out for those, right? In other words, the Pat Kings that might join your, I'm not sure Pat King should be made out to be that bad, but he certainly didn't make himself look good. Or the agent provocateurs, as they call them. You better be very careful. Watch your butt, James, on this one, and anyone else who goes along with you.
Yeah, and it could be a setup. I'm worried about it being a black swan, where they're going to turn it into something it's not. Again, because they just did it in February already. And then the timing being around when it was last year. I hope it doesn't interfere with the commissioner in any way, because I think this is where the media is going with this. I think the media wants to scare the commissioner and the report that's coming out that, look, we're already having the second one. The inquiry didn't change a thing. They're going to come and shut down Ottawa again. This is where the rhetoric is headed. So this could be for the commissioner's benefit. I'm not sure. But whenever the media decides to do something together collectively, pay attention. They're all now talking about this as Convoy 2.0. No one's called it 2.0 other than the media. So be very, very careful with this.
Yeah.
That's my warning to all.
Yeah, it's definitely a cautionary note being added to this one for sure.
Cool. And now I'm going to just say hi to Mr. Green Thumb. Hey, bud.
Okay, I'm gonna bow out and let you go back to your chats because you want to be saying goodbye soon. So
thank you so much, Terry.
No, not a problem. Thank you for having me. Again, thank you for listening.
Anytime. And if we don't talk to you again, we'll see you Saturday.
That's for sure.
Awesome.
Okay, bye.
Bye, Terry. So Mr. Green Thumb is asking, what is this about today? Mr. Green, we're trying to figure this out. So what we're doing is today we did about a 3-hour, so it'll be over soon. Little hello to Canada, and we'll see where this goes. So I am able to do, I think I can handle this. This is, for me, it's from 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. To dedicate to Canada, to talk, bring the stories forward, bring some people together. We had 10th on today. We had Terry on today. We had Azario on today. Keep doing that and see where it goes. The next little month or so, Mr. Green, I do need to catch up on work, and there's some stuff that's been neglected that I got to get done. So I'm going to try and find a way to balance a 3-hour-a-day stream with my actual daily work. And this is the new look. We got that jacket, Mr. Green thumb. So we'll see where this heads. Okay, bud. There's a few comments here I definitely want to get to before I end today. First of all, hey, John. Nice to see you, buddy. Welcome back. Freedom loving homies. I personally feel like I need to apologize to you, John, because I didn't have a yacht club, Yellowhead Yacht Club. Just wasn't in it Friday night and couldn't bring myself to dedicate the energy for Saturday night. But we're going to try and work on that, John. Okay, we want to make that a regular thing because it worked out so great, and we want to keep it going. And good morning, Hillbilly77. Welcome back, bud. Thanks for coming back. We're just sitting here chatting today, and if you like that, let me know in a comment, and we'll keep doing it. And then Lovely Flight, this is a new face. Are you a pilot, or you just like to fly? Let us know a little bit about you. Shouldn't there be a public list starting with our PM? Sure, make one. But what are you expecting to get out of it? You think voters are going to go check that before they vote? Do you think media is going to use that to help expose? I don't have a problem with creating lists as long as you're factual and they're accurate and they're not defamatory. They're just straight up the facts. But I don't know if Canada will use that. But I guess maybe what I'm saying, Lovely, is we don't really have it, so we're not sure how that would work out. Maybe we should try it, right? As you point out, in Eastern Europe, countries that have made these lists, they include politicians, doctors, journalists, all public figures who push the agenda. It's a bipartisan thing, right? Then this list should be for all corruption, not just the agenda. And then who decides who's speaking the agenda versus repeating the agenda? I just want to be careful because my biggest concern here, Lovely, around some of this stuff is it becomes a deterrent for new people into the system. Okay. One way to completely ruin government is to make it so unattractive that nobody wants to get into it. So then the only people left are the ones that made it their career and made it their target, and they want to be there. And this is a mix of the people we truly want. So I am for accountability, oversight, and deterrent. So doing things that deter people from doing bad things, I'm for that. But I'm not for making it so individual and personal and go after people's private lives in such a way that it becomes unattractive for people to participate at all. So one of my biggest concern is like a brain drain in government where people who know better, understand better, and really don't want to lose their entire private life won't. Okay. Like if I am one who went from private to public. Okay. And that decision to do it was a tough one because entering public life is just harsh, no matter who you are and what you're doing. And I've gotten a taste of that. But if it was even harder, so for example, if 10th got his way, people were protesting at my door, at my home, and that was acceptable, and that was a form of protest that all of Canada said was okay, I assure you, it would have been a lot tougher for me to make that step. Or, for example, if every single mistake I ever made privately that had nothing to do with my politics ever is also exposed, that would make me take a pause. Not because I'm trying to hide stuff. It's just because I'm not perfect. I don't want to be embarrassed and shamed over stuff that had nothing to do with my ambitions to run into MP. Okay. Are we talking about ex-girlfriends? Are we talking about financial partners? Are we talking about family? Like, I think that would become such a deterrent away from good people getting into the system that you're only going to be left with career politicians. Okay, so it's such a tough one. Okay, I like accountability on people who need it. And if we go into this whole personal and private and past is all fair game and your personal property is all fair game, you definitely will have a lot less people entering the system. 100%. And then what do you got left? Hey, James, the last government is just as culpable as our current situation as a present LPC. What's LPC? Sorry, James. Roxanne, welcome. I never moved from listening to the Emergency Act. I never moved from listening to the Emergency Act. Well, as long as you're paying attention, Roxanne, you're going for the information, you're going to be a lot more prepared to make good decisions. And thank you for coming back. Hey, Prairie. Yes, we need that for sure. So Prairie agrees that we need some sort of public list. And look, offenders, charge is where I want to draw a bit of a line, because anybody can charge anybody and it can be fake. Convicted, for sure. Okay. Once you've gone through due process and you were found guilty, yes. But I want to be careful. I don't want it to turn into a deterrent where nobody with any integrity can enter, just for fear of that mistake they made with their ex-wife, or because they have an ex-wife, or maybe there was a lawsuit that they're involved in that sucked. And I just don't want to get rid of good people. And then Lovely says, hello, I'm not afraid of tent, a friend of tent. Okay, no problem. No, I was just wondering if you knew him. I'm new here, but I'm also not young. And I'm wondering if we have time to see the change in our lifetime. That's where I attach with tent, is I don't think we have unlimited time. Okay? I don't think we have unlimited time. Even though technically the election isn't until 2025, I started early for the purpose of, I don't think we have a lot of time. I don't think we have a lot of time. At any point, an election could be called. Now we're hearing rumors about spring. We were hearing rumors about the winter we just had. So this can happen anytime. I agree. We don't have a lot of time. So are we going to see the change in our lifetime, Lovely? I think so, yes, because we saw it change one way, and now we got to go back within our generation. And this is why I do align with Tent on his call to action on the windows closing. So I think he's correct on that. Many people have had some trauma. They see things just differently. You know what? The most appreciative group of people, a lot of times, are people that come to Canada, newcomers, because they're leaving something else to come to Canada, and they appreciate Canada more. And then when they witness things changing, like they witness what they left from, those are some of the more heartbreaking stories that we really need to open our ears to. There's quite a few of those interviews from the convoy itself, where there's people from other countries like Poland, Ukraine, Russia even, where they were being interviewed and saying, look, when media is taken over by the government, when they start to disarm you, they start to come after you, they start to other you, these are all signs of a tyrannical government. We should be paying attention to what they have to say. And then thank you very much, Prairie, for opening a couple waves and sharing a flower with Lovely. Lovely, nice to meet you. Again, I don't know if you're a pilot stuff, but let me know. I'll get to your chats. Oh, wow, there's a bunch of them. I'll do my best to get to all of these folks. Oh, sorry, we just did that one. I agree with the angst, but I think fighting fire with fire, so to speak, in the end makes us just the same as them. Clay, this is why I think you connect well with this channel, because I don't think we're there yet. Okay, I think we all understand where it could lead, and this is why we're fighting hard now to not get there. I think that there's a lot of mechanisms in place, including an election, before we would even consider anything along those veins. I don't think we're close. But history, if it repeats itself, will tell us now these are the steps. So with C-21 and the hunting rifles happening right now, this is one of the big red flags. Okay, I think we'll talk more about that one tomorrow. C-21. So if any of you are listening and you have been following what's going on there, the gun bans, the handguns, now the hunting, and you want to be on, just let me know and I'll put you on. We'll talk about it. Nice to be here. Thank you very much, Lovely, for being here. And yeah, conversation is super important. I can sympathize with 10th, but I'm far less jaded. About the same here, James. But I do hear his warning loud and clear. I've been following this globalist thing since about 98-ish. And when I look around these days, I see far more people aware of it. Now, James, do you think that is because we're waking up or because they're just so blatantly in the public eye now? Like even in 98 and stuff, when we're talking, there wasn't WEF, so to speak. There was a lot of globalists. There was a lot of Bilderberg Group and those kind of stuff, starting to materialize. And then WEF and Davos has kind of been the latest iteration of a global consolidation around that globalist agenda. So thank you a lot for keeping an eye on that. But do you think more people are waking up? In other words, it's an action on their part to understand? Or is it just more in their face and they're hearing about WEF more and they're just so blatant about it? It could be a combination of both of those. Let me see where we're at here now. Yeah, so Jimmy's got it right. So February 17th through the 21st, I heard they're going to leave, is what I heard. Yeah, so that's the same thing I'm hearing as well, Jimmy. There is a timeline. And if it is Bear Hug 3, they're going to do a slow roll around the city. You may not see them in the downtown core. You may not see them going around. They might just slow roll around the city and then leave. But each time they do it, they say, because Bear Hug 1, 2, and now 3, that they do progressively make it more uncomfortable. So I'm just speculating around the slow roll, but I guess we'll find out. I'm not involved. I'm not joining it. When I talk to Freedom Corp and they have nothing to do with it and they're disinterested and they actually think it's a bad idea, I don't disagree with them. So we'll pay attention to that one. Thanks, Terry, a bunch for being on the show. And then we got a little comment here from 10th. No, not mad at anyone. Nicholas Love, respected from 10th. And there's a lot of love going back to you as well. We do understand your role in a nice, strong democracy, and we do appreciate you doing that. Hey, thanks, Charlie, for sharing the love to Terry. He was on and had a good time. Charlie, if you want to get on tomorrow, just let me know. I'm not mad. I'm arranged. That was a good line in 10th. I missed that end of the stream, but what I caught was great. Yeah, I haven't really watched a 10th one. He's been more of a guest here, and I'm learning a lot from him that way. Liberal Party of Canada. Thank you, James. Sorry, bud. CPC, Conservative Party of Canada. Sure. Yeah. I will now keep that. List of all those associated with agenda. So that one's tough, Prairie. Who gets to define what's agenda? Would I be on that list? Because I'm associated with agenda in a way of a fighter against it. Am I propagating the agenda? Well, loosely by talking about it, but then I also counter it. So would I be on that list? Would the counters be on that list? So people that counter me because they don't believe there's an agenda, so they're countering me for trying to stop an agenda. It gets messy, Prairie, but I like what the idea is. And I don't know if we need to make a list. I think if we ever go through a cleanup, they've already outed themselves all over the place. So we won't have to search hard to find the people that had the wrong ideas. That was dangerous talk. Hey, Claire, yes. I have all the Zoom links and court cases. Cool, Green. You have a lot of information. I believe you are on our Discord, Green. If not, jump on there. Perry, yes, cool. No, not a pilot. I wish. Not hard, lovely. Takes 60 hours. I did it. It's hard. You gotta stay dedicated to it. You gotta make the time for it. But it is, liberating. You can fly anywhere. You learn how open certain society is. Private flying, wide open. I guess because certain classes in there a lot. November 16th at 10 a.m. Okay, you guys are chatting about something. I missed that one. Hopefully get a chance to dialogue more. Great, 10th. And I agree, peace and love. Sometimes I wonder if it's a foundational approach, never been tried, followed through with during tense times in human history. See, what 10th is absolutely doing is reminding us over and over again exactly the path we're on, and we need that. Up until 2016, I think it was awareness. Okay. I believe the globalists stepped up the game after Trump, and it became more obvious. So I say a bit of both awareness and it being obvious, persuasive. And I think what you identified here, James, is as we continue with this, and there's going to be a lot more Trump, okay, Kanye, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's really starting to hit the waves now, which might also wake more people up. And then independent journalist, did you watch this guy Garage yesterday about laws on rifle? Not yet, but we're going to be looking at C21 tomorrow. So if you got some links, Mr. Green, go ahead and share those. Freedom is dangerous. There's no place for feelings. That's what level-headed is, right? Maturity is your ability to move past emotion and get into using your intelligence. That's what we're doing here, 10th. So thank you, bud. And then 10th Man channel. Yeah, 10th Man 36. Go check it out. Subscribe. I understand he deletes his videos or unlists them. So subscribe so you can get notice and then check them out. And 10th, we'll have you on again. Right, folks, that's not bad. 10:03, we got through the chat. No more stars. Thank you all so much. This was just a shot in the dark to see what we can do today. I was kind of nervous about trying to do this because how do you carry 3 hours without, content happening in front of you? But what I've absolutely learned through the 7 weeks of enjoying my time with all of you is that you're going to be there. You're going to be bringing topics up. You're going to be providing links. This is stuff that you're interested in, and then you're going to bring it. So I think this works. I'm sure this will evolve over time, but I am committed to giving 3 hours a day, seeing where this goes. That's like 21 hours a week. That's a part-time job, right? That's a half a full-time job. So we'll start there. Then I think we'll have additional shows like Yellowhead, Yacht Club, maybe the week with Azario, an entire show around Azario and what he's been doing all week or something. Chris, I'm going to reach out to Chris a lot because we want to do a bunch of stuff around mental health awareness and helping people. So Chris Erickson from BC, we'll have him on, and then we'll just keep reaching out to a whole bunch of people. I do want to get Danielle Smith on just to talk to her and get some clarification. So maybe we can look out for that. And if there's anybody else that you guys know that may want to be on the show, reach out to them, let them know, try and connect us. We just want to talk to everybody, all sides, every side. Doesn't matter if it's a counter protester. Doesn't matter if it's the prime minister or prime minister in waiting. I want to talk to everybody because this is what we need in Canada now. All right, folks. Well, thank you very much for coming on this little adventure with me. We'll see where it goes. Oh, we got a nice little thank you from Terry. Hey, Clay, thanks a bunch. The support from you is amazing. Terry, what's next? C21. We'll talk about that one tomorrow for sure. Hello, Motown. Oh, I know who you are. You're in my Twitter. You are a lovely person. You are a lovely person. God bless you. Thank you very much for joining us and throwing into the chat there, Motown. Nice to see you. See you Saturday, Jason. For sure, Terry. We'll see you Saturday in person. And thank you, lovely, for coming as well. Jim, buddy, thanks a lot. Peace out to you as well. See you tomorrow. Go ahead and subscribe and like and do all that kind of stuff. It helps spread the reach. So maybe we'll have more people tomorrow too. So on that note, thank you all very much. You guys have a great day. You take care. Try not to freeze if you're in Alberta. It's going to be a really cold one today. So thank you all very much. Take care. Tomorrow again, 9 o'clock Eastern time for 3 hours. So we'll be your morning show. God bless.